Both the HSE and Donegal County Council are being urged to be proactive as it relates to buildings in Buncrana, which are set to become vacant as a result of the new primary care centre. A number of buildings across the town are currently being used as clinics and surgeries, but will be vacated when the centre opens in the coming months. Acting Cathaoirleach of the Inishowen Municipal District, Councillor Nicholas Crossan, says it's important to explore what can be housed in those buildings now to limit the turnover time.
Preparation, I think, is the key word that we need to do. Prepare for the future. We know this primary care is going to be opened. We know that there's going to be premises that's going to be lying empty. So let's preempt that and let's try and get them into operation as soon as possible.
Well, it comes as the number of commercial property units lying empty across the country is at its highest level in 9 years. Ballybofey is the town with the highest commercial vacancy rate in Ireland at 30%. The figures recorded by Geo Directory show there were 29,317 vacant commercial units in the last quarter of 2021. CEO of Geo Directory, Dara Keogh, says the fallout from COVID is having an impact on the figures.
But we do believe there has been some effects of COVID, such as the movement to online shopping, the hybrid work practices, and possibly a start of moving the people away from the eastern Broad counties and moving further afield, and that has affected some businesses.
Weather now, it will be a generally dry day with spells of sunshine and the small chance of an isolated shower. Maximum temperatures of 7 to 10 degrees. That's all from Highland Radio News for now. We'll be back with news again at 10 o'clock. Until then, good morning.
If you're due to graduate in 2022 with a qualification at any NFQ level from 6 to 10 in an engineering or science discipline, then you have the opportunity to do something wonderful at Intel. Apply now to be part of the team that's creating technology to change the world for the better. From right here in Leixlip, Kildare. When you graduate, you could join us as a process engineer or manufacturing technician. Learn more and apply now at intel.ie/apply. Intel. Do something wonderful.
And a very good morning to you. It's the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. It's Donald Kavanagh on the programme until 12 noon today. Lots to get through, but as we always say, at the absolute centre of this programme are your views and your perspectives. You can text us on 086 60 25,000. Use that number for WhatsApp messages as well. You can call us on 074 91 25,000. Karen Orr taking your calls and producing this morning as well. If you're outside of the dialing area, you can use the number 00353 7491 25,000. We're on social media. It's Highland Hub on Twitter, Highland Hub on Facebook, and at Highland Radio on Twitter. You can email us, of course, comments at highlandradio.com. It's a Thursday, which means we have quite a few papers to get through, a number of them locals. We'll start with the Donegal Democrat. Cars issue for Gardaí in battle against drugs. Frustration. Garda Drugs Unit in County has no unmarked car. Chris McNulty writes that as drug-related crime continues to soar in the county, the ability of Gardaí to police the issue is being compromised by a lack of resources, and indeed that's an issue we have discussed in the past quite a bit with Brendan O'Connor of the GRA. Also on the front of the Donegal Democrat, Donegal's COVID rate is the highest. The COVID-19 rate in Donegal, once again the highest in the country, with 1,266 cases recorded in the county in a week, according to latest figures. Also, INMO Seeks hospital meeting. That's a story you'll have heard yesterday on news and on the show, indeed on Highland as well, when we spoke to Neil Donoghue, the Industrial Relations Officer with the INMO. At front of the Donegal News this morning, Scottish plan for hospital shelved. While patients are treated in ambulances, Celta to bring in professional services firm for review. The NHS team due to carry out a review of Letterkenny University Hospital's management and governance are no longer coming over from Scotland, following a U-turn from the healthcare group Celta. The external team were being brought in following a series of reports which outlined serious failings in governance structures at the hospital. Instead, Celta has gone back to the drawing board and is now bringing in a professional services firm to undertake the review. No timeline has been given. Also, Letterkenny unveils Ukraine Solidarity mural. Oksana, who you've heard on the programme on a number of occasions, along with Kieran Dunleavy at the unveiling of that Ukraine Solidarity mural at Port Road yesterday. It's on the wall of Burrito Loco, just beside that the one that's been there for a while now, based on Irish mythology. A very, very interesting and well drawn mural, and indeed done in jig time as well, because I believe they only had the idea and the initial discussions on it last Sunday, and for Kieran Dunleavy to get from that to what's actually on that wall, I think is a testament to his skill as an artist and to his and others' vision. The Tyrconnell Tribune this morning, main headline, Donegal roads allocation down by €10 million. Donegal's roads budget for 2022 has fallen by around 10 million compared to last year. A statement from Donegal County Council this week highlighted a budget of over 70 has been allocated to the maintenance of the county's roads this year, but comparative figures across the same spending modules show last year's allocation was just over €80 million. Eamon McFadden's full story there on the Tyrconnell Tribune. Also, suckler farmers fear income loss. And a new memoir about the troubles in Northern Ireland is being launched in the Lagoon in Termon tomorrow. Paddy McMenamin, the author of From Armed Struggle to Academia, will be joined by John McAteer of the Tyrconnell Tribune. Moving to the Nationals and Irish Independent, war in Europe. First Ukrainian city falls to Putin's army. And local militiamen are helping an elderly lady cross a bridge destroyed by artillery as she tries to flee on the outskirts of Kiev in Ukraine yesterday. The main story featuring what you've heard on the news. It's the southern city of Kherson, whose mayor has confirmed it has fallen into enemy hands. Also on the Irish Independent, Ivana Bacik poised to lead Labour as Alan Kelly quits. Alan Kelly dramatically resigned as Labour Party leader last night after being told his position was untenable in the wake of an issue that arose over a recruitment process for a backroom position within the party, and that's an issue that we will be speaking about on the programme to some local Labour stalwarts a little later in the show. UN condemns Russia as 900,000 flee Ukraine. That's the main headline on the Irish Times this morning. Kyiv says invasion has claimed the lives of more than 2,000 civilians. Reports of Russian atrocities are referred to the International Criminal Court. Also on the front of the Irish Times, again, Bacik favourite to become the next Labour leader. Irish Daily Mail this morning, main headline again, it's Ukraine, Putin now accused of genocide in horrific new blitz. Russian despot unleashes colossal destruction on Ukraine with missile attacks targeting cities. And also a picture of Owen McDermott. McDermott, accuser, admits false allegations. The full story on the inside of the Irish Daily Mail. And that's a story that's been discussed quite a lot in the media here over the past 24 hours. Irish Daily Star this morning, people power. Putin's tanks burn as Klitschko vows Kiev will fight on. Embattled Ukrainian citizens were last night desperately fighting to defend their homeland as President Volodymyr Zelensky warned Russia is trying to erase Ukraine from history. Champion boxer turned Kiev mayor Vitaly Klitschko called for more international support for their fight as civilians took up station near the giant Endogatter energy plant to prevent a nuclear disaster. And that's the front of the Irish Daily Star this morning. The Irish Sun. Klierowski is the headline. Putin crony flogs Chelsea in panic as sanctions flee. Russian billionaire Roman Abramovich last night put Chelsea up for sale. The move sparked claims he was flogging UK assets before sanctions bite. The 55-year-old vowed to give any profits from an expected €3.6 billion deal to the victims of the Ukraine war. And apparently Irish MMA star Conor McGregor is exploring the possibility of buying the West London club. Also on the front of the Irish Sun, ex-2FM McDermott set to sue Twitter. The former 2FM DJ Owen McDermott is suing Twitter for defamation after false allegations were made against him last year. Front of the Irish Daily Mirror this morning, a very striking photograph. A boy is born in a bomb shelter beneath Putin's murderous attack on Kyiv, and the main headline, for his sake, for his future, stop. And also a side headline, McGregor lets buy Chelsea, and Owen, woman's false sex assault claims. More on that Owen McDermott story on the inside of the Irish Daily Mirror this morning. And finally, the Irish Farmers Journal. It's a Thursday, which means the journal is out. Main headline, war fuels fears over fertiliser and feed. Fears continue to grow around the cost and availability of feed and fertiliser following the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Fertiliser orders from Russia have been cancelled while shipments in transit cannot be paid for due to financial sanctions being imposed. Merchants have warned that fertiliser supply for April are going to be very difficult, and that's the front of the Irish Farmers Journal this morning. And don't forget, by the way, as it's a Thursday, we'll have farming news and views from Chris Ashmore just after the news at 5 o'clock this evening. So that's something to look forward to if you're involved in farming. It's Highland Radio. They are the papers as they're looking this morning. We're going to take a short break. Back after these.
The newspapers are courtesy of Kelly Centra, Mountaintop, Letterkenny. Mike Denver in concert with guests Ray Lynham and Brendan Shine at the Inishowen Gateway Hotel Buncrana on Sunday, March 13th. Tickets at hotel reception and ticketmaster.ie. That's Mike Denver with guests Brendan Shine and Ray Lynham at the Inishowen Gateway Hotel Buncrana, Sunday, March 13th.
If you've got magic moments or great memories captured on your smartphone, now is a great time to have them printed at mcgee's.ie. Simply upload your favourite photos, choose your size and finish, and McGee's will take care of the rest, with the results delivered to your door. Prices are from just 12 cents, and there's also creative options available. Preserve your memories today at mcgee's.ie.
Discover the Dunnes Stores app and put better value at your fingertips. Tap to browse all our latest grocery offers. See all your 10 off 50 grocery vouchers stored in one place, and scan your Value Club card to earn points. All within the app, saving you time and money. Plus, download the app today and you'll receive a one-time 10 off 30 welcome voucher. Dunnes Stores, always better value. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome voucher can be used on next grocery shop of €30 or more.
Don't sleep in and miss the very latest beds and mattress offers from dfibeds.ie, Ireland's leading online bed and mattress retailer. You'll get a comfy Irish-made mattress, upholstered base and headboard from an amazing €229. Check out the full range at dfibeds.ie. Delivery free and guaranteed to you within 7 working days. DFI Beds. Sleep well, live well.
Department crackdown on inactive farmers. In this week's Irish Farmers Journal, we outline the active farmer criteria, new stocking rate changes, and the department's plan for mapping scrubland. As the war in Ukraine escalates, our specialist team examines the impact on food prices and food security, the price and availability of fertiliser, and the risk to animal feed supplies. Plus, find out what steps farmers can take inside the farm gate to de-risk their business. Only inside this week's Irish Farmers Journal, in shops now.
Call now on 074 91 25,000.
It's the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. One of the big news stories last night, and I must confess, a news story that somewhat caught me by surprise, was the departure of Alan Kelly as leader of the Labour Party. Now, he resigned, but made it quite clear as he resigned that he was doing so because it was made clear to him earlier this week that he has lost the confidence of the parliamentary party and that his position was untenable. Joined on the line by two guests were joined by Seamus Bavard, who's chair of the Labour Party in Donegal, and also joined by the party's only public representative in the county, Inishowen-based councillor Martin Farron. Going to you first, Councillor Farron. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing, Donald?
I'm very well indeed. As I said, Martin Farron, this took me completely by surprise last night. Did it take you by surprise?
Yes, it was. Yes, it certainly did. I got a phone call yesterday afternoon from Seamus there to see that he heard rumblings, that this may happen. And then at 10 to 6, just about 10 to 6 yesterday afternoon, I got a phone call from headquarters to say that it was going to be announced on the 6-1 news. And it certainly was a bit of a shock. We got an email from Alan last night. I'm sure Seamus will fill you in there as well. And it was quite a shock to him as well, because he only became aware of it really on Tuesday morning when he was advised by his parliamentary colleagues that they had sort of lost leadership in his they'd lost confidence in his leadership. So that was a bit of a shock, I think, to Alan as well, because he did acknowledge that, that we have sort of not moved on and sort of got a bounce back in the polls. We're sitting at 4 or 5%. And, but I mean, let's be honest about it. Alan took leadership of the party in 2020 when we were at a very low ebb. And as you know, the pandemic hit, which affected the whole world. And he never really got the opportunity to show his leadership skills and to bring the party forward. So I think really, from my own perspective, looking at it, I think they've moved far too quickly in this. I think Alan should have been given the opportunity to show his skills now that the country has opened up again, and to bring the party forward, and also been allowed and given the opportunity to lead them into the next general election. But unfortunately, that was taken away from him yesterday afternoon, and as you could see from his when he spoke yesterday afternoon, or yesterday evening, I felt very, very sorry for him. It took an awful lot out of him. Alan is a very proud Labour man. He's been in Labour all his life, and as he stated himself, he was very proud to become leader of the Labour Party, one of the proudest moments in his life. And I think that, that for this to happen, it shouldn't have happened, and I'm very, very disappointed. And I know I've spoken with Seamus on this, and we will be obviously, well, I'll let him speak in terms of...
And we'll go to Seamus Bavard. Seamus, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Seamus, you share Councillor Martin Farren's view that this is too early and that Alan Kelly really hasn't been given a chance.
Yeah, that would be my opinion. And as well as that, they've put the party into a strange situation. And as much as all the leadership competitions have nearly always been tied to elections. So after an election, there's an agreed process of electing a new leader. We have jumped now and we're going into new territory. There'll be things to be teased out as well as selecting candidates. A methodology may have to be devised. I wouldn't be an expert in the constitution of the Labour Party, but traditionally, every member does get a vote.
Well, the way things are being presented, certainly in the media this morning, it seems that the next leader of the Labour Party is already preordained. The whole thing is done and dusted. It's just a matter of going through the formality of selection and election. And that next leader, we're told, is going to be Ivana Bacik.
Yeah, well, that could be presumptive. I'm not going to mention...
Martin Farren, can I bring you in on that? I mean, looking at the prospect of Ivana Bacik leading the party.
I sort of really wouldn't pay too much attention to that at all. I think that's just taking us away from the fact that we've lost Alan Kelly, and I would be surprised. I'm actually surprised at that name myself, that should be the one that's put forward. I would have heard a number of names, all right, there's no doubt about that, but that's another day's work. What we're here to talk about today and what I'm here to talk about today is Alan Kelly. I've known Alan Kelly since I joined the party in 2009, and he's always been very, very helpful to me. In actual fact, I had him down here in October time, and I had been working with him very, very closely in relation to the Mike issue, along with Senator Marie Sherlock, who's married to a local fella in Carndonagh, and Marie would know precisely how things stand in his own in relation to the Micah. So Alan was fully 100% behind the Micah people and the Micah group. So as I say, I intend to speak with him hopefully over the next few days. He has decided to stay on as leader of the Labour Party until such times as he gets someone to replace him. But I'll leave him for a few days. I messaged him last night, and I will speak to him hopefully over the next few days. But I think what has happened here shouldn't have happened, Donald. That's my honest opinion. But as he said himself, Labour went into power in 2011 to 2016, and at that time, as you know, the country was in quite a bad financial situation, and there was a lot of unpopular decisions had to be made, and Labour paid the price for it at that time, and they have not bounced back since, and they have a lot of work to do. Whoever does take over the leadership of the party will have a lot of work to do, but as I said, this is the day I want to speak about Alan Kelly, because I think if he hadn't been given the opportunity to take the party forward into the next general election, I think he would have done extremely well. That's my personal
You do
opinion.
believe then that he could have increased the number of the party seats, because there has been almost a predictable sequence with Labour where Labour gets a good boost in the polls when it's in opposition, it wins more seats, it gets involved in government, it loses lots of seats, it licks its wounds, it then increases its seats, it goes into government and then loses seats. And that seems to have been almost a pattern within Labour for several decades at this point. You believe Alan Kelly was perhaps going to be the man who could break that sequence and maybe re-establish Labour as a strong party in its own right?
Well, when you're always a smaller party, in with a big larger party, like say sort of Fine Gael at that time. It's always the smaller parties that actually take the hit. And in Labour's case, that's always the case. But sometimes you have to bite the bullet, and they did that particular time and went into power with Fine Gael. And as I say, that's really when you're tested and when decisions have to be made. Sometimes, when you're sitting in the opposition benches, you can always say what you like and this should be done, that be done. But when you're actually in there and decisions have to be made, and sometimes they're unpopular, and that's where you lose out. But I think Alan Kelly possibly would have learnt from the 2011-2016 election, and as he said himself, and he's quite open to it, that his time in politics, and hope he's there for quite a number of years yet, that everybody makes mistakes, and you learn from your mistakes. And I think if he had been given the opportunity to take us into election, I don't know how we would have done. Nobody can preempt that until the election is over. But I think they jumped the gun here in this one, and I'm just sorry that it happened. And from my own perspective, I will continue to work with Alan Kelly, and I would just like to take this opportunity to thank Alan for the work that he's done and will continue to do for the Labour Party, and to wish him well into the future, because that's what I will be saying to him whenever I get speaking to him, and I hope when I'm in Dublin next to meet up with him.
Seamus Bavard, I want to go back to you, and we're told that the reason Alan Kelly's position was untenable was because of a dispute over the selection process in an internal appointment within the Labour Party, and that was the rock that he perished on. There is, it seems, a widespread belief that that's just a handy thing to pin this on, that basically the knives have been out for Alan Kelly for some time, and those knives were particularly sharpened when Ivana Bacik got into Dáil Éireann.
Yes, there's always been some infighting there, and Alan's not the most diplomatic of politics. If he has something to say, he says it, and that mightn't go down too well with some of the snowflakes that are there. But this has obviously been going on for some time. The word got out, was it last weekend, that there was something going on, and my understanding was that they were getting everything lined up to go to him, and it was a fait accompli. I'm not going to say, I don't really know what the background of that was, but at the end of the day, Duncan Smith seemed to be a linchpin of. So Duncan, Sean Sherlock and Mark Walls had to go and give the bad news to Alan. What the percentage was backing them, I don't know. We may never know, but yes, there was infighting about selection of some staff issues. But I think there was more to it than that.
It would appear on the face of it that, every party and every organisation is going to have a debate about internal selections and internal appointments and so on. How often does that bring, realistically, how often do those internal discussions actually bring down a party leader?
Very rarely, particularly in the Labour Party. We've had some robust discussions over the years, and nobody had to fall on their sword until this.
Do you believe the Labour Party can unite under a new leader, whoever he or she may be?
They're going to have to. At the minute, there's quite a few left-wing parties or quasi-left-wing parties there, and all doing similar work. And I think our future was going to be in opposition, working with like-minded left parties. Alan Kelly wasn't one for going down the populist route. There were certain things, in hindsight, he was involved with the water metering scheme, which is held against him.
He was minister at the time. He effectively was was the minister given the poison chalice of bringing it in.
Yeah. If you lived down our way now and had the water out 3 days in the last week, And if you lived in Bridgend, you know, whose side would you be on now?
It's certainly an interesting question. A lot of people would say, though, that even if water charges had come in, that wouldn't have made any difference whatsoever to whether or not pipes were replaced and there was a better water system in place. But that's perhaps an argument for another day. Councillor Martin Farren, I want to get back to you because Seamus Bavard made an interesting comment there where he said he believed Labour would work with other left-minded parties in opposition. There is, of course, another prospective scenario after the next election. And that's the prospective scenario of Labour becoming involved in a left-leaning government led by Sinn Féin. That may be a pipe dream in some people's ears, but many people will believe that is now very much a realistic possibility and something that we have to think about as an option for the future. Is that something, do you believe, the Labour Party is thinking about, both locally and nationally?
Well, I think that, after every general election, there's always there's always a lot of toing and froing, and obviously I think what would happen there was Labour would actually sort of look and they would speak with their party members and decide if they should go into government or stay out of government, whether it's Sinn Féin or anybody else for that matter. But I would agree with what Seamus is saying there. There's a lot of like-minded left party thinkers out there at the moment, and it could happen. It's possible that it could happen. I don't know. I never like to look that far ahead of me.
Is there a risk that some Labour people could actually decide, I'm not staying here, and go and join their former colleague Roisin Shortall, for instance, in the Social Democrats?
That's a possibility. I don't know. I think we'll think about that whenever the time comes, and see where we go from here. Obviously, we're going to get a new leader now, and that new leader, whoever that may be, will have their own ideas on how they're going to bring the party forward. And obviously, in doing that, they'll have to speak with ourselves and see what our thoughts are in relation to this. I've no doubt now that Seamus will be in touch with the Labour Party headquarters just to find out precisely what happened and what's going on and where we're going from here. And I'm sure we will have a meeting then in relation to that matter. But I never like to preempt anything. Don't just we just see where we go from here.
And Seamus,
today's the day about Alan, and I want to speak about Alan. And as I said, I want to wish him very well, and I want to thank him for the work that he's done, and will continue to do on behalf of the Labour Party.
Seamus Bavard, I want to give the final word to you. I mean, in terms of the procedure over the coming weeks, as Councillor Martin Farren said there, you'll be in touch with Labour HQ. When do you foresee the discussion about a leader really beginning and the election and selection process taking place?
I think myself that there's some technicalities to be resolved first. That because this is a new process, and as much as it's not following on from an election, the normal routine is there's quite a bit of discussion at parliamentary party level, and then the hosting starts, and the emails start coming in from the selected candidates, and then there's a proper election.
And is it a one-member, one-vote selection, or is it weighted in favour of the parliamentary party? We know the Fine Gael system, for instance, is done in a way that sort of everyone gets a vote, but the parliamentary party really make the decision. Labour is one person, one vote, as I understand it.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we will get a ballot paper, and each member will respond.
Well, I'm sure we'll be having discussions about that in the coming weeks as that process begins. Seamus Bavard, Chair of the Labour Party in Donegal, and Councillor Martin Farren, the party's only elected representative in the county. Thank you both very much indeed for speaking to us this morning.
Thank you, Donald.
Thank you, Martin, thank you, Seamus, and we'll be keeping an eye on that one, obviously, as time goes on. Just want to remind people that following a incident yesterday, the road at Guesthouse End Street in Rafo remains closed off as a result of that collision that took place yesterday. So just bear that in mind if you're travelling in the area. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to be discussing the 4-lane works that are taking place in Letterkenny between the Dry Arch and the Polestar roundabouts. Councillors and others were briefed on the latest yesterday, and we're going to hear from one of those after these messages.
This Friday, Around the Northwest will be coming live from Logues of Cranford, and to celebrate the launch of Mulroy Drive and the 10 new viewing points and things to do around Mulroy Drive. Find out more from 12 p.m. this Friday. The Outside broadcast is kindly sponsored by Eco Atlantic Ventures, Kerrykill.
There's a gaggle of monsters you'll see around town, in every colour from bright pink to brown. And just like us, they have hopes, dreams and wishes. A new car, new windows, a holiday diving with fishes. They know just where to go for their dreams to come true. The local credit union who can help you out too. For all of your dreams that are big, small or strange, we've got you covered with our Monster Loan range. Monster Loans from the Credit Union. Imagine more. Loans are subject to approval. Terms and conditions apply. If you do not meet the repayments on your loan, your account will go into arrears. This may affect your credit rating, which may limit your ability to access credit in the future. Credit unions in the Republic of Ireland are regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Do you need a little extra help staying in your home? At Bluebird Care, we offer a wide variety of QMark-approved personalised home care services across Donegal. And our fully trained and committed staff will always meet your care needs with kindness, compassion and dignity. To get your personal home care assessment plan, visit bluebirdcare.ie or call our care team today on 07491 29562 and bring care home.
You'll find all the best toys at Foy's Buffet. Discover great value on all the latest toys, ride-ons, bikes and Baird go-karts, with new deliveries arriving every week. Great offers on best-selling brands like Lego, Fisher-Price and Barbie. With new deliveries every week, you can get all the fun shipped to your door, with free delivery on orders over €75. Shop local and find everything you need at Foy's Buffet, or shop online at toysatfoys.com.
Text 086 60 25,000.
This is the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. We're joined on Zoom by Councillor Donal Mandy Kelly. Donal, good morning.
Good morning, Donal, and all your listeners.
Great to talk to you this morning. Now, you have been briefed on the latest with regards to the works on the 4-lane between the Polestar and Dry Arch roundabouts this week, and we know that some resurfacing work has been done, and we're perhaps starting to see maybe the beginning of the completion of this work, but it's not all been plain sailing, and it's not going to be plain sailing from here on in either.
Oh yes, Donal, we had a meeting yesterday with the contractors there via Zoom as well, and council officials, and there's also officials from the chamber on as well, and just to get an update on the works that's going on. And you're right there. I suppose the last time I was on, Donal, I was talking about the safety concerns along that road. Listen, I suppose for the people that I represent that was bringing me with these issues, and I suppose at the time I deemed that the road there coming off the Dye-Arch roundabout onto the 4-lane, I made a statement that, in my view, that it wasn't up to standard. And listen, I stood by that statement, and because I think that the number one priority on this project is road safety and the safety concerns of everyone. But as you've said there, I think it was recent as 2 days ago there, the contractors were out, and fair play to them. They resurfaced that road coming off the Dye-Arch roundabout onto the main 4-lane. And I went out myself just to have a drive over it more than anything to see what kind of standard was done. And listen, I think it's a great job that they've done there. And the feedback I've got as well from our constituents there, they're very happy they're coming in there now, and happy to see that the safety concerns are there. Happy to commend the contractors for that. You know, to be fair, I mean, there's been when I suppose myself and other local representatives have approached the contractors or Donegal County Council. You know, they have stepped up and
No, I'm afraid it's not the best connection, but we'll just press on for the moment. We know it had been intended that work would be finished by August, but the latest indications are it's not going to meet that particular deadline, and we're talking a couple of more weeks now, closer to the end of September.
Yeah, Donal, that's not asked that question yesterday on the meeting. You know, are they on target? But I suppose unfortunately no, they're running a bit behind. But you're chatting maybe 3 to 4 weeks. But I mean, Donal, if you sit back and I suppose take it all on, I mean, the weather we had there had a major factor, and I suppose it's understandable that these contractors, you know, they're not hitting on target. But listen, they're not that far out either. I mean, what's 3 or 4 weeks of a great job was done. And I mean, you had COVID there, and I mean, we need to understand that. And you have Brexit there at the minute, and so it's all taking I suppose, a damn view, and everybody's kind of getting a hat over this, with delays and deliveries and one thing and another, and the weather. I mean, there's a major factor. We're all fully aware of the storms that came there, and as I say, the more of the road, even for the workers on the ground, safety is number one for everyone involved there, and so it's understandable. But listen, as I say, they're not that far off Harrogate, and that's a good thing.
We know that at present it's a speed limit of 60 kilometres an hour on that, and our understanding now is that that's going to remain the case after the work has been finished. And a lot of people commenting on that, because it's not that long ago that the actual limit on that stretch was 100k, then it went down to 80k. It now seems it's going to actually stay at 60k once that work is complete. Donald Kelly, can you hear me? I think we...
Yeah, hear me, Donald?
I can indeed, yep.
Yeah, I suppose, Donald, speed has always been a major issue on that stretch of road, but listen, 60k, I mean, Donald, it's a stretch. I think it's 1.4 kilometres, it's not that long, it's not going to make any major delay to anybody's journey, I don't think, and I think, it makes more sense to keep the speed limit down for that small stretch road. You have a lot of businesses along there too. You have a lot of entrances coming in and off that section of road. And I mean, for all concerned, I mean, it's good to keep your mind on the safety side of things, I suppose.
Absolutely. I want to bring in, I just make a comment to you that goes slightly beyond this, but I know it's an issue that you have taken an interest in. And we did get a caller to the show last week that made the interesting point that basically said, I haven't heard an awful lot more about the bridge at Bonagee, the new bridge over the Swilly. I'm hearing all about the 4-lane and other roads, but I'm not hearing about the Bonagee Bridge and the Bonagee Link. Is that still on the agenda? And I suppose really from the point of view of you and your colleagues in the council, it very much is.
Yeah, it very much is, Donald. It's definitely on the agenda. And I mean, I suppose, things may be quiet, I suppose, on the maybe social media end of things and on the radio, but I can assure you there's plenty going on behind the scenes, and the works are still fully, I suppose, on site, and targets are trying to be met, and one thing or another there at the minute. So it's definitely still on go, Donald.
Have you had any indication as to when we may see some concrete movement on that? We know it's part of the wider plan between now and 2040, but 2040 is still, almost 18 years away. So from that point of view, people would be certainly hoping that we'll see work begin substantially on that plan sooner rather than later.
Yeah, well, definitely don't. But listen, I can't give any, I suppose, concrete statement on here today about it. But all I can say is ourselves as local representatives, we're doing all that we can on this, and we're pushing hard to get this delivered and take every step at a time, and to ensure that the work is ongoing, behind the scenes, and hopefully we'll hear some positive news regarding this here soon for all concerned, and everybody can be updated.
Councillor Donald Mandy Kelly, thanks indeed for speaking to us this morning and giving us that update. Thank you indeed.
Thanks, Donald.
And that was Councillor Donald Mandy Kelly there. And work, as we say, on that 4-lane stretch between the Polestar and Dry Arch roundabouts now looks set to be complete by the end of September, and confirmation as well that it now seems that 60 km/h limit will remain in place. Just want to look at some of your comments before we go to a break. A caller says Labour lost its values when it implemented a lot of Fine Gael policies when they were in government the last time. I was one of those who had voted for them. Another caller says Labour have also been underhand when Jimmy Hart's seat on the council was being filled on the county and town councils. Labour Party members were shafted. Peter Cutcliffe and Siobhan McLaughlin were ignored. Joan Burton, Pat Rabbit and the likes destroyed the credibility of the Labour Party for years to come. Another caller says Alan Kelly and Labour betrayed the people of the working class when in government. That'll never be forgotten. He will be in Fine Gael in weeks. They were never in opposition. Cut the poorest in society. I will never vote Labour again, says a caller. Another caller says good of Alan Kelly to take the dignified route by promptly resigning when the curtain came down on his leadership position. Other party leaders should take note when it's time to go. Others said most realised that Labour failed the people. They became an arm of both Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. Alan Kelly will be remembered for the water charges, which created one of the greatest people power groups ever in the country. Did I hear the Labour councillor say that Alan Kelly became leader during difficult decision times? What decisions? And the caller says, hi Donald, it's been said that PC middle-class lovies wanted him gone as he spoke his mind too much for them. He looked like he was in front of a firing line, and I think there is no doubt, if you're talking about Alan Kelly, when the old question goes, did he jump or was he pushed? It's fairly clear that in this case, he most certainly was pushed.
Michael Murphy Sports and Leisure has everything you need for getting fit in 2022. From training gear to resistance bands, skipping ropes, weights and foam rollers, we have all the essentials to see you through every step of your fitness journey from training to recovery. Shop our range of gym wear, equipment and accessories at michaelmurphysports.ie.
I'm conducting a study of human untidiness, one bedroom at a time.
Sheila, housekeeper. I figure out that, yes, you do have room for dessert. Ryan, waiter.
I love to see you when you've been out late.
Nigel, night porter. They've all been explaining their jobs in their own words on behalf of Northern Ireland's tourism and hospitality industries. Discover hundreds of amazing opportunities in tourism and hospitality right now when you search careerscope.uk.net/NI. Explain them any way you want.
You are 4 times more likely to be involved in a collision if you use a mobile phone while driving. The penalty for using a mobile phone while driving is an automatic 3 points on your licence and a €60 fine. This includes holding a phone in your hand or supporting it with another part of your body when you are driving. Mobile distraction can impair your judgment and reaction time. You're mobile. It won't kill you to put it away. From the Road Safety Authority and on Garda Síochána. Visit rsa.ie.
It's exciting times at Hillside D-Max in Letterkenny because they've moved, but not too far. Their new kitchen design studio is now open at Curralees on the other side of the Mountaintop roundabout. This new studio showcases the latest kitchen, wardrobe and slide robe designs with D-Max renowned attention to detail and exceptional quality. Hillside D-Max, in the heart of your home since 1994. Now at Curralees, Mountaintop, Letterkenny.
This is the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. It's Donald Kavanagh on the programme until 12 noon today. Now, we are going to talk about the Love 30 campaign. It's a group in favour of lowering speed limits, particularly in built-up areas. Now, we do have a situation in Letterkenny, certainly, where the speed limit within housing estates is 30 kilometres an hour. So if I'm travelling into my estate in Letterkenny, there is a 30k sign at the entrance to the estate. It's 30k right through the estate. And once you're leaving the estate, there's a 50k sign just at the entrance out onto the main road. And the Love 30 campaign recently made a presentation to the Oireachtas committee, and they want to see these limits reduced. We're joined by Joan Swift, and Joan's going to speak to us about the issue this morning. Joan, good morning.
Good morning, Jonah. Lovely to have the opportunity to talk to people in Donegal.
And it's great to have you here. As I said, we do have a 30k limit in many estates in Letterkenny, and I know that's the case elsewhere as well. But you believe essentially that should be the case right throughout towns?
Exactly. Yes, it's interesting you mentioned your own estate because the same applies in Sligo, but our estate has some of the houses on what you might call the main road and the rest are in cul-de-sac. So my house has the 50 limit and around the corner, which is actually the same estate, has the 30 limit. Yes, you mentioned earlier that we as an organisation, Love 30, are interested in having the default 30 limit, but it's not just ourselves. The RSA is also now very strongly in favour of it, and they presented at that joint Oireachtas committee the other day as well. And it is something where we're behind the curve. Several European countries have a default 30, including our maybe very nearest neighbour in Wales, and Scotland also has quite a lot of their expanding their 30 zones. The thing is that it has been proven to be safer. If you're hit by a car at 30 kilometres an hour, there's 1 in 10 people will die. Whereas if you're hit at 50, 5 in 10 people will die. So, you know, it really is a safety question in built up areas where we're talking about where where human beings, where 6-year-olds and 86-year-olds and 46-year-olds and people on bikes and buggies and wheelchairs, etc., where people mix with traffic, essentially, is what we're not talking about, interurban routes and motorways and dual carriageways and that kind of thing.
Now, we were speaking before the break to a councillor about another road project where, on the outskirts of town, where there previously had been a 100 k an hour limit, and it's now been reduced to 60. And he was making the argument that it's not really going to have any real impact on journey times. And if anything, there's an argument that says it may, if everyone obeys the speed limit, may make things run even more smoothly. And you believe that could also be the case in towns, that this will not cause delays. If anything, this could, and it seems almost counterintuitive to say this, that this could speed up traffic.
Yes, it does seem counterintuitive. Everybody assumes that they'll be held up. But a study that Dublin City Council did when it was first introduced on the quays showed that the delay was pretty much negligible if you're talking about within towns. And even between towns, say Donegal Town to Letterkenny, Donegal Town to Letterkenny, yes, but I wouldn't be as familiar with the Donegal Town to Sligo. You pass through 3 or 4 villages where if this was introduced, the default limit would be 30. And I worked out the other day that even if you had to drive at 30 for 10 kilometres, assuming, say, 4 or 5 villages, each were 2 kilometres long, that delay would still only be 8 minutes. Now, that might be annoying if you had to leave your home for your work 8 minutes early, but the whole difference it would make in the ones I would be familiar with in Grange or in Cliffany or in Drumcliff, and I'm sure it's equally true in Carrigarter, Buncrana or Letterkenny or wherever, the fact that people could mix and mingle on the street, that they wouldn't be terrified when they're walking their child to school or when their teen is cycling to school and so on. You could hear yourself think, if you like, you wouldn't have that noise, that vibration, just that general sort of disturbance, if you like, in places where people want to mix and mingle.
Yeah, it was interesting you mentioned Grange there, because Grange was the place that came into my mind immediately when you spoke about the road between Donegal Town and Sligo, because, I mean, Grange, effectively, the road remains the main road right the way through. And I'm sure, in a place like Grange, where the road doesn't become smaller, or you almost don't have a sense of driving through a village or a town. I mean, it's just straight through and on you go. It would make a huge difference to Grange if the limit were at 30 and actually observed.
It would, and you're actually right in terms of that it would need more than simply putting up signs. I mean, that is, that would be first step, if you like, if countrywide people had this expectation. But then there's also what you would call a design speed, that in a way the road should dictate to you what speed you go at. So, you might be talking about planters or about, roads narrowing in different ways, whether it's by providing, not in a bus lane or a bike lane, or as I said, trees, planters, the various ways of indicating to the driver that this is an area that you don't actually zoom through.
So you believe maybe more traffic calming measures like that are going to be necessary, particularly in a place like Grange, where it is actually effectively the main road running straight through it?
That's exactly the issue, that on where you have villages and towns that are still on national roads, and that will be for some years to come. I mean, many people can do a commute without having to drive in, some parts of the country, without having to go through, even say from Sligo to Dublin. I mean, when we first came to live in Sligo, we had to drive through the middle of Longford, the middle of Mullingar, the middle of Edgeworthstown and so on. And now we don't. So, but it's still affecting substantial areas of the country where we do have national roads going through villages and towns. And the Transport Infrastructure Ireland, their remit, if you like, they talk about, fast and efficient. Now, they do mention safe traffic, but that's not really, that's fine if you want, you're going from to a port or an airport or whatever. But people live in these places, and, they need safety too, and they need to be able to move about and to get to school or to get to the shop or to collect their pension or whatever it is.
You made that presentation to the Oireachtas committee. What was the reception you got, and do you get any sense from that reception that there's going to be progress on this?
The reception was quite good, from particularly the chairperson, Kieran O'Donnell from Limerick, was very positive, and I suppose the arguments, Dr. Lorraine Darcy, she's mentioned on today's Irish Times. There are quotes from her presentation, and she's a lecturer in sustainable transport in in Dublin. And then the RSA themselves were pushing it very strongly from the safety point of view. And then we were. And given that it is happening we're actually, as I said, behind the curve, given that it is the case in so many other countries and so many other cities, I think people were reasonably well disposed. Now, not every member of the committee was actually there, so it remains to be seen. When they reconvene, they're going to have another session where they'll be talking to HGV drivers and the Garda and taxi drivers and so on. And I mean, there will be issues to be ironed out. But it's very interesting that you mentioned that your councillor said that slower speeds don't necessarily hold you up very much, because the average speed, you have less kind of, screeching to a halt and then starting again and then screeching to a halt. Your average speed may well remain pretty much the same. But if there are delays, the benefits, I think, outweigh them.
Can I put a point to you that I have heard made in regards to this debate before, and it's this. Rather than arguing for 30 km/h zones in places, and we'll just take Grange as the example because it's one we've discussed already, that rather than advocate for a 30 km/h zone in somewhere like Grange, which many would believe to be perhaps unrealistic, if the emphasis were on actually enforcing and rigorously enforcing the 50k zone, then that would have the same effect of slowing down traffic. And, there is an argument I've heard made that says effectively that rather than advocating for 30 across the board, that if the 50 were actually observed, it would have a similar effect in terms of safety.
That's a reasonable argument. It seems logical, and it was actually made the other day as well. And it's one that I've heard Councillor Gilroy, who lives near Grange, actually making about there, that we'd be doing well if we implemented the 50. And certainly we're all in favour of implementing the 50, and more enforcement is needed. But you have to go back again to the safety argument that even if somebody driving through Grange knocks somebody down, heaven forbid, and they're going 50, there's a 5 in 10 chance that person will die. And if they're going at 30, there's only a 1 in 10. So I think that the safety argument trumps it. But we're certainly all in favour of enforcement.
Joan Swift of the Love 30 campaign, thanks indeed for speaking to us this morning.
Thank you very much, Donald, for giving me the opportunity.
It is our pleasure, and we'll obviously be very, very carefully watching what happens with regards to that debate as time goes on. That was Joan there, and thank you very much indeed to her. A number of your comments that have been coming in. Caller says, the war in Ukraine is so awful. I, like everyone else, want to help. But listening yesterday, I was just thinking about the fact that wars are going on elsewhere in the world, and I have to admit, I never really thought about those people. And there is an element of truth in that. And I suppose the truth is that we know this is on our doorstep. This is in Europe. It's happening in a place that you can get to from Dublin Airport. It's happening in a place where, as I said, my daughter was in Kiev on a city break 2 years ago. And there is a truth in that because it's happening in Europe, it's happening relatively close by. Yes, it does focus our minds on it more. We got a letter in actually, and our correspondent says, I'm very concerned about post offices being moved into supermarkets. A post office is somewhere we do very private and personal business. You have no privacy in a supermarket. The post office I used to use was moved into a supermarket a few years ago, so I changed to a different one. Now it's moving to a supermarket, even though there were many other suitable premises applied for it. Does anyone else feel this way, or is it only me? I just feel we have no privacy doing very personal business with people all around you. I would really appreciate your view and that of your listeners. And that is from a correspondent there. And it's a very interesting point. Now, the argument is that there are, the importance of maintaining a post office in the community for people, be it collecting pensions or whatever, is of paramount importance. And sometimes the only way that you can commercially keep a post office in a rural area is to incorporate it with a shop and have the post office as part of the shop, because as it stands at the moment, it can be very difficult to make money on post office transactions. And, I suppose it's one of those lesser of two evils. What's the lesser of two evils? Is it better to maybe have to put up with a certain amount of discomfort in terms of privacy in order to keep the service in the area? And that, I suppose, is a debate that's going to become more and more prevalent. Comment in from Councillor Michael McLafferty on patrol cars, and the mention was made during the newspaper review that there are no unmarked patrol cars in Donegal. Well, Councillor McLafferty says there are no patrol cars in Dunfanaghy, marked or unmarked. If they need a car, it has to come on loan from Falcarra. So if if there's an incident in Falcarra at the same time, there is no vehicle available to Dunfanaghy to respond to an incident. The ironic thing is they take cars off the road because they deem them unfit for guards to drive once they hit a certain mileage, but they then end up in an auction to be bought by the public. And it's the same for all state vehicles. So says Councillor McClafferty. That is a very interesting point, and one which is well made. One more comment before we go to a break and then the news with Michaela. Caller says, I'm trying to apply for my children's passport, and because I am separated, I would like both my and their father's surname on the passport. I'm disgusted at how difficult this is. Their birth certs have both parents' surnames. You would think the passport office could accept that as documentary evidence, but they don't, and they don't accept deed poll. Only letters from doctors or school, who won't change the kids' names with documents either. In this day and age, it's discrimination against single parents and children to dent them the name of choice. Can anyone out there advise and ask and, help in any way? And that's from a very angry mum, and that is a very interesting point. And as always, we'd be very interested to hear your perspective on that if you have one. It's just gone 2 minutes to 10 o'clock. News with Michaela after this short break.
Are you involved in a digital project in your town or community? Would you like to share in a €100,000 prize fund? The .ie Digital Town Awards shine a light on the achievements of local towns for digital projects in health, education, tourism and community. To enter the .ie Digital Town Awards, visit weare.ie. Terms and conditions apply.
Letterkenny Show Society Export Show and Sale of 55 pedigree bulls will take place this Tuesday evening, the 8th of March, at Reform Art, judging at 3 p.m. with a sale at 6:30 p.m. There will be €200 for the buyers of the 2 top price Charlie and Limousine bulls. Online bidding available via martbids.ie. All online customers and Northern Ireland customers must contact the Mart office on 074 9145 250 prior to the sale. That's this Tuesday evening at Reform Art.
At your local Centra, we have great offers, like Centra Chicken Fillets 454 gram, only €5. Lynx Body Spray 250ml selected range, half price now €3.49 each. And McGuigan Black Label range, only €9 each. Centra, live every day. Enjoy alcohol sensibly.
Do you suffer from high cholesterol, menopause symptoms, digestive issues, anxiety, aches and pains, or a lack of energy? The highly trained team at The Natural Way Letterkenny can provide advice on natural remedies for a number of individual health issues. The Natural Way also has its own brand of herbal treatments to help fight fatigue, relieve digestive discomfort, maintain a healthy immune system and alleviate common menopause symptoms. The Natural Way at Letterkenny Shopping Centre, your one-stop health shop.
All ready for next year? Why not make sure of it with SEAT? Trade up to a 221 SEAT SUV and you'll be offered PCP finance from 1.9% and a 3-year service plan for just $9.99 a month. With the bold new Arona, the stylish new Ateca, or the outstanding 7-seater Tarraco, we're all ready. Are you? Trade up to your 221 SEAT SUV at DMG Motors, Clare Road, Donegal Town. Finance provided by way of hire purchase agreement from Volkswagen Financial Services Ireland, trading as SEAT Financial Services. Subject to lending criteria. Terms and conditions apply. Visit seat.ie/221 for further information.
Live, on air, online and on the Highland Radio app. This is Highland Radio News.
Good morning, I'm Michaela Clark with the news at 10 o'clock. The SCSI is to present the findings of its construction costs for the defective concrete blocks grant scheme report within the next hour. Last month, the body was instructed to produce an independent standalone construction cost report for the demolition and rebuilding of homes affected by defective concrete blocks. The report provides costings for 8 house types in both estate and one-off housing scenarios. A woman remains in a serious condition in hospital after a crash in Rafo yesterday afternoon. At around 2:30 at Guesthouse End Street, a car collided with a second vehicle which Gardaí say struck the pedestrian. The woman in her 50s was removed from the scene to Letterkenny University Hospital in a serious condition. Gardaí say investigations are ongoing. The road will remain closed until early this afternoon with diversions in place. A Donegal Labour councillor believes Alan Kelly never got the chance to demonstrate his leadership skills. Mr Kelly resigned as Labour leader last night after accepting that his parliamentary party no longer had confidence in him. Earlier, he denied members of his parliamentary party were working against him from the start of his time as Labour leader. Councillor Martin Farn believes the move to oust Alan Kelly was premature.
Alan took leadership of the party in 2020 when we were at a very low ebb. And as you know, the pandemic hit, which affected the whole world. and he never really got the opportunity to show his leadership skills and to bring the party forward. So I think really, from my own perspective, looking at it, I think they've moved far too quickly in this.
The Justice Minister says Ireland could be accepting anything up to tens of thousands of Ukrainian migrants. She's in Brussels today to meet with other EU Justice Ministers to discuss a coordinated response to managing the high volume of refugees entering EU countries. Helen McEntee will be pushing for initiatives that would allow Ukrainians get 1 year citizenship in Ireland with extensions for up to 3 years. Speaking on her way into the meeting, Minister McEntee says government want to help as many people as possible.
Depending on the figure and the number of people that flee, that could be anywhere. It could be tens of thousands of people. But the most important thing for us is making sure that our doors are open. Obviously, we're working very swiftly at home, bringing together departments, ministers who will be impacted here, making sure that we have the right mechanism in place to support people.
Both the HSE and Donegal County Council are being urged to be proactive as it relates to buildings in Buncrana, which are set to become vacant as a result of the new primary care centre. A number of buildings across the town are currently being used as clinics and surgeries, but will be vacated when the centre opens in the coming months. Acting Cahirlock of the Inisho Municipal District, Councillor Nicholas Crossan, says it's important to explore what can be housed in those buildings now to limit the turnover time.
Preparation, I think, is the key word that we need to do. Prepare for the future. We know this primary care is going to be opened. We know that there's going to be premises that's going to be lying empty. So let's preempt that and let's try and get them into operation as soon as possible.
The call comes as the number of commercial property units lying empty across the country is at its highest level in 9 years. The commercial vacancy rate in Donegal increased to 16.9% in the last quarter of 2021, according to figures published today by GeoDirectory. Ballybuffet had the highest commercial vacancy rate at 30%, while Buncrana had the lowest at 13.1%. CEO of GeoDirectory, Dara Keogh, says the fallout from COVID is having an impact on the figures.
But we do believe there has been some effects of COVID, such as the movement to online shopping, the hybrid work practices, and possibly a start of moving the people away from the eastern Broad counties and moving further afield, and that has affected some businesses.
Weather now, it will be a generally dry day with spells of sunshine and just a small chance of an isolated shower. Maximum temperatures of 7 to 10 degrees. That's all from Highland Radio News for now. We'll be back with an update again at 11 o'clock. Until then, good morning. The obituary notice says for this Thursday morning, March the 3rd. The death has taken place of John Eugene Quinn, Sonny, 55, Marion Park, Buncrana. His remains are reposing at his residence. Funeral from there on Saturday morning at 9:15, going to St Mary's Oratory for 10 o'clock Requiem Mass with burial afterwards in Cockhill Cemetery. Funeral can be viewed online at churchservices.tv. The death has taken place of Noreen McFadden, Noreen Joe, Kernsport, Gidor. Her remains are reposing at her late residence with rosary nightly at 9 o'clock. House private to family, relatives, friends and neighbours. House private from after the rosary until 10 a.m. and on the morning of the funeral. Funeral from there tomorrow morning for 11 o'clock Requiem Mass in St Colmkille's Church, Knockfolla, with burial afterwards in the adjacent cemetery. Funeral Mass can be viewed live on Gallagher Funeral Director's Facebook page. The death has taken place of John P. McBride, Cranford. The wake is private to family, close friends and neighbours. Family flowers only, please. Requiem Mass this afternoon at 1 o'clock in Cool Chapel, followed by interment in St John the Baptist Cemetery, Carrigart. The death has occurred of Grace McGonigal, Gortna Seed, Kincashla. Her remains are reposing in Gortna Seed with rosary tonight at 9 o'clock. House private from 10 o'clock tonight and before the funeral. Funeral Mass tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock in St Mary's Church, Kincashla, with interment afterwards in Crutch Cemetery. The death has taken place of Philip Doherty, 21 St Columbus Avenue, Buncrana. Remains reposing at his residence. Funeral from there tomorrow morning at 9:15, going to St Mary's Oratory for 10 o'clock Requiem Mass with burial afterwards in Cockhill Cemetery. Family flowers only please. Family time from 10 p.m. Funeral can be viewed online at churchservices.tv. The death has taken place of James Jimmy Farn, Cashel Craw, Carndonagh, and formerly of Gowan Hill, Glasgow. Funeral leaving his home tomorrow morning at 11:30 for 12 noon Requiem Mass in the Church of the Sacred Heart, Carndonagh, with interment afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. House open, all welcome. Rosary tonight at 8 o'clock. House private from 10 p.m. until 10 a.m. Family flowers only please. Donations if desired to the Carndonagh Community Day Centre. The death has occurred of Colm Gallagher, Ballintemple, Falcarra, County Donegal. His remains are reposing at his late residence. The wake is private to family and close friends and relatives. Funeral Mass this afternoon at 1 o'clock in St Finian's Church, Falcarra, with burial immediately afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. The Mass can be viewed live on mcmmedia.tv or Sweeney Funeral Director's Facebook page. The death has occurred of Annie Gallagher, Derry's Glenties. Funeral Mass in St Connell's Church, Glenties this afternoon at 1 o'clock, with burial afterwards in the local cemetery. Funeral Mass can be viewed live on churchservices.tv. House private before the funeral today. And the death has taken place of Bridget Hume, née Hagan, 6 Iona Park, Derry. Funeral from her home this morning at 11:30 for 12 o'clock Requiem Mass in St Columba's Church, Longtyre. Interment afterwards in the city cemetery. Family time please until 11 a.m. The Mass can be viewed live via the church webcam. Family flowers only please. Donations in lieu of flowers if wished to Deeds, care of the Old Library Trust, Central Drive, Craigan, Derry. For more details, including any family health guidelines for wakes and funerals, please go to highlandradio.com.
We all deserve a better work-life balance.
But not all of us have the space to work from home.
Connected Hubs brings together flexible workspaces across Ireland on one simple website.
So you can quickly and easily find a hub in your local area.
It's everything you want from an office without the lengthy commute.
Meaning you don't have to trade quality of life for quality of workspace.
Give yourself space. Visit connectedhubs.ie or download the app to discover a hub near you.
Connected Hubs is part of Our Rural Future, a Government of Ireland initiative.
This is the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. It's the second hour of the programme on this Thursday morning, the 3rd of March. It's World Book Day, a day in which we're all encouraged to read, and a day I am particularly interested in because I just love reading and have done all my life. A very interesting Around the Northwest coming up after this programme with John Breslin. John's going to be out and about, and a special programme to mark World Book Day, so please do stay tuned for that, because it's a hugely important day. I'm actually wearing a t-shirt today which is inspired by my favourite book. Anyone watching on Facebook or on YouTube will see the 42 and the thumb. It's a reference to The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams, with a final book by Owen Colfer. That's my personal favourite book, and we'd love to hear what your favourite books are. I mean, if you want to give us a text or a call and let us know what your favourite books are on this World Book Day, because it's a day that's geared towards encouraging people to read, and what better pastime could anyone be encouraged to get involved in? Let's look at some of your comments that have been coming in. Tonight on the Market Square in Buncrana, brave Ukrainian speakers will be sharing what it's like back home. And I'm sure a lot of people will be there for that. With regards to the speed, caller says 30 kilometres an hour means you drop one or more gears and you burn more fuel. Another caller says if you drive in Ashlawn from the upper side, the speed sign says 20 kilometres. When you head down toward lower Ashlawn, as you drive over the ramps, the sign says 50 kilometres. That could only happen in Donegal. With regards to Alan Kelly and the Labour Party, Labour crucified the poor and working class people of this country when in bed with Fine Gael. Who can ever forget what Joan Burton did? Neither she nor the Labour Party will ever be forgiven. Another caller says, remember Alan Kelly on the TV talking about turning the water to a trickle on the people who didn't pay. Another caller says, could you ask why is the Galdiner Road in such a terrible state? It must be the worst road in Donegal. So says our caller. Interesting point by a caller. I'm all for supporting the small artisan producer or supplier. Yesterday I bought fish for €13.20 from a local supplier. Out of curiosity, I was in a large supermarket and bought the exact same fish in type and weight for €8.10. That's a very big difference. Now, we could go into a long discussion on organics and where they come from, and perhaps one fish you bought was caught in waters and is fresh and another was farmed. I don't know the story. Perhaps that wasn't the case. But certainly you will pay more for organic food and you'll pay more for artisan produced food, and it's really up to the individual consumer to make the choice as to whether the price difference is worth it. And isn't it wonderful that we do have that choice? Volunteers sought for Honeypot's Spin Challenge for Ukraine. Do you have 15 minutes to spare this Saturday to give some pedal power to the fund for Ukraine? The Honeypot Coffee House in Letterkenny is appealing for volunteers to join a spinning bike challenge. They're holding a benefit for the people of Ukraine. There'll be a bike in the cafe from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. with the aim of keeping the wheel turning all day to generate support for a bucket collection. The Honeypot team is looking for volunteers to take a 15 or 30 minute slot. In total, they need between 24 and 48 volunteers to fill the slots. There'll also be a draw. Another story, Ukraine humanitarian aid and evacuations. The world must respond to this cruel war in Ukraine. We're seeing images of elderly women and children huddled together in makeshift bunkers. Children's hospitals pushed underground into the most brutal and freezing cold conditions. These are the most vulnerable souls. They need our help. Please help our mission to bring humanitarian aid and vital supplies, medical food and thermal clothing to them. We also intend to evacuate anyone that wants to escape as Russian convoys now move in and surround their towns and cities. That comes from the United People's team, and they have a website. It's fundraiser.com. That's fundrazr.com if you want to support that. Caller says, my son was admitted to the emergency department for an open wound. It was a bad incision on the leg on Tuesday evening during the severe overcrowding. We initially thought there had been a bad accident with all the ambulances parked up with patients inside, but at the emergency department doors we met an overflow of sick patients. The patients were all so lovely, caring and mindful of each other. It was lovely to see. It was as though they were all in this together, knowing it wasn't the staff's fault and patiently waiting their turn, yet allowing us with our 4-year-old to go straight in. Just to say we had an emergency with a bad open bleeding wound and just waited our turn like everyone else. We did have to be prioritised. Thank you to the helpfulness and care everyone gave us in the waiting room, both the sick and the well, and the doctor and nurse, both of whom were amazing. Our child also got a little teddy from the nurse that was donated by a company. Kept him going for 5 hours. The importance of this alone was a bit distraction. Keep up the donations and caring nature. And it's lovely to hear that, because yes, we do know on Tuesday evening there was a horrendous situation in the emergency department in Letterkenny, and as we heard from Neil Donoghue, the Industrial Relations Officer with the INMO, this is happening all too frequently. But it is good to know, and we do part off that line sometimes, we're all in this together. But I think people do rally round in situations like that, and it's good to know that it was supportive, because if a situation like that gets, everyone starts looking at each other suspiciously and they're cutting in and they're breaking the queue and how are they getting seen before me, if that sort of atmosphere can pervade a situation like that, and it can become uncomfortable. The fact that these people felt comfortable in that setting, it's a testament to the other patients and to the staff as well. It's time for the bingo numbers. So if you play Highland Radio NCBI Radio Bingo, it's time to grab your books, grab your pens, and I will hand you over to Canis.
It's time for NCBI Bingo on Highland Radio.
It's Thursday the 3rd of March. Jackpot Day. You're playing for the jackpot prize of €9,200 on the pink sheet. The reference number is S4. It's game number 9. The jackpot number is number 4. This number can come out in any position from the next 10 numbers drawn. And now, here are your daily numbers. 70, 48, 47, 74, 2, 32, 37, 58, 23, and finally 4. Phone your claim to 9104833 before 8 tonight, leaving your name, contact number and the name of the shop where you purchased your book, and we'll call you back the next working day. Get all your NCBI bingo information at highlandradio.com. We are currently buying all types of excavators, loading shovels and backhoes for export from 3 tonne to 70 tonne. Contact AB Plant Exports Group today and you will receive the very best price across Ireland, north and south. For more information, contact AB Plant Exports Group on 0873 779966.
70, 70, 70, 70, 70, 70, 70. Choo choo!
Right Price Tiles and Wood Flooring up to 70% off sale is now on. Everything's reduced. All tiles, all bathware, all wood flooring. Right Price Tiles and Wood Flooring, 70% off sale is leaving the station. Sale now on.
Choo choo! Local Enterprise Week is back to help your business get the wind in its sails. Running from Saturday the 5th to Friday the 11th of March, Local Enterprise Week is organised by Local Enterprise Office Donegal. Chart a clear path for your business by getting advice on marketing, leadership and recruitment. Also on networking, exporting, finance and much more. Booking is essential. To see the lineup of events and speakers and to book, visit localenterprise.ie/Donegal or call 9160735. Supported by Enterprise Ireland, Donegal County Council and the Government of Ireland.
This summer, holidays are go with Jet2 Holidays and Atlantic Travel. So go explore your sunny favourites with hundreds of free child places available. Ask the experts at Atlantic Travel about your next Jet2 holiday by calling 074 912 6193. And book now with just a £60 deposit per person. Jet2 Holidays. Package holidays you can trust. Subject to availability and conditions.
Mike Denver in concert with guests Ray Lynham and Brendan Shine at the Inishowen Gateway Hotel Buncrana on Sunday, March 13th. Tickets at hotel reception and ticketmaster.ie. That's Mike Denver with guests Brendan Shine and Ray Lynham at the Inishowen Gateway Hotel Buncrana, Sunday, March 13th.
Text 086 60 25,000.
And you're welcome back to the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. A very interesting concept and something I certainly had never thought about is the Dying to Talk Cafe. The idea of a Dying to Talk Cafe is to normalise the conversation around death and dying so people feel a lot more comfortable thinking about our own mortality. I'm joined on Zoom this morning by Kathleen Bradley and Sharon Williams. They're project facilitators with Compassionate Communities Northwest and they have opened such an initiative in Derry. Kathleen and Sharon, good morning to both of you.
Good morning, Donald. Nice to be here.
And it's a pleasure to talk to you. And this is a very interesting idea because a lot of the time we talk about the deaths of others. We talk about the deaths of relatives, be it deaths that have happened or deaths that are perhaps impending. But we don't always talk about our own deaths and our own mortality. And you believe that this is something that needs to be changed. Kathleen?
Yes, definitely, Donald. I mean, death is very much part of life. So our motto would be, so should talking about it. And I mean, we know that talking about death and dying and loss and bereavement, it helps us to think about our own mortality, which helps us to make plans, to make better life choices, to live as best as we can. And, having those conversations and knowing kind of what it is you want and having plans in place, it ultimately helps our loved ones then, in the event when we die, that they don't have any difficult decisions to make. And, getting to that point starts with a conversation. So we're delighted that we're able to take these conversations out into communities.
And Sharon, this isn't just a conversation for people who perhaps have a diagnosis or a terminal illness or people who perhaps believe themselves to be close to death. This is very much for everyone.
Oh, absolutely. Advanced care planning is for anybody 18 and above. And the earlier you have these conversations, the better. I mean, we all know that end of life is part of life, but we never know when that might be. So, starting the conversation earlier ensures that, you have your wishes and that your loved ones are, as Kathleen has just said, spared additional anxiety and difficult decisions and can go through the bereavement process in a normal way, without complicated grief. And I think that's very important. And that's what spurs a lot of people on to make these plans, is that they know that they're looking after those closest to them.
And to an extent, perhaps we do this already because very often, you'll hear someone make a comment, oh, I want that played at my funeral, or, oh, when I'm gone, you can have such and such an album, or you can have my musical instrument or whatever. But this is maybe a way of just taking that on to the next level and not formalising it is the wrong word, but perhaps making your wishes clear and having that conversation in a way that minimises, and you talk about minimising the grief and the bereavement process, perhaps it can also minimise arguments among families.
Without a doubt, Donal, and as you say, I mean, like, our conversation around death and dying up to this point is reactionary to when we're at someone's funeral or we hear of someone's death. And, it's very much about normalizing it so that it's not reactionary. It is part of our life. But I mean, like, we have heard stories and have experiences with people that we've engaged with through the project where there has been total family breakdown, the arguments, the distress, at a time when people should be coming together as best as they can to be as connected and as supportive with each other. And, having these conversations while we're still able to have them, and having these conversations while we're still able to make these decisions, it saves all of that. It removes all of that, because we've talked about it, we've thought about it, we've wrote it down, and we've shared our wishes, so that there should be no fallouts.
And how does the concept of the Dying to Talk cafe work?
Well, the Dying to Talk cafes are really an opportunity for people to come and share their experiences and have these tender conversations that sometimes their own family will shy away from. We often hear older people say that they've wanted to have the conversation with their grown children, and they shy away from it. They go, "Oh, Mom, I don't be doing that. No, that's never going to happen." So coming together and amongst people who are open-minded and receptive to talking about it gives them the opportunity to explore their ideas, and then ultimately gives them the confidence when they leave the cafe conversation to maybe say, "No, I really do need to talk to you about this. This is for your benefit. These are my wishes." So it's about empowering people, I suppose, through reclaiming the D word, and improving end-of-life experiences for the dying and for those that they leave behind.
And is the idea then that yourselves or another facilitator will join a conversation for a while, perhaps steer the conversation in the right direction, and then get out of there when the time is right?
No, well, Donal, I mean, our hope is that people who are interested that get in touch with us if they want us to come out to facilitate and host one in their local community, their local organisation, but then that someone then within that group or within that community or organisation, we will train up to be able to deliver these talks then, so that after 4 or 5 cafes, we're out and it has just been sustained by that group, by those people. This is very much something that can be done, there is no great degrees needed. That this is sitting down around a table, and as part of the support that we give, we have a cafe menu. Now, in all fairness, we've never really had to use a cafe menu, because once these conversations get started, I mean, these conversations sustain themselves, and they're organically growing around the table with who's there. And I mean, it's very much that when we look, it's not really that people maybe don't want to talk about death and dying, but there's very little opportunity there to talk about it beyond that reactionary experience of someone dying, so there is support package there that helps people to be able to take this out into their own communities and talk about death and dying.
And presumably then the idea is that after perhaps experiencing the cafe and after starting the conversation in that environment, that people, when they get home, will continue the conversation at their own kitchen table and perhaps bring more family members in, bring more friends in, and that what starts at the Dying to Talk cafe doesn't finish there. It finishes somewhere else completely.
That's absolutely right, Donal. It's the starting of the conversation. And we have further resources that signpost people if they want to, if they haven't already made their will, what things to consider. Have they considered their digital legacy? Their social media, all the photographs that are contained on there, what are their passwords, who do they give them to? Very practical things, looking at funeral planning, organ donation. But ultimately, it starts with a conversation. That conversation has to keep continuing and has to be reviewed as we go through different milestones within our lives, and things change for us.
If people are interested, compassionatecommunitiesnorthwest.com is the website, or people can make contact directly with yourselves. How can they do that?
Well, Donal, we have our next Dying to Talk cafe is an online virtual one happening next Thursday. So they get in contact with us or to book a place at that cafe. Just email us on info@compassionatecommunitiesnw.com, or phone me on 07841 101932.
Sharon Williams and Kathleen Bradley, both Compassionate Communities Northwest project facilitators. Thanks indeed for speaking to us this morning, and all the best with the ongoing work. And hopefully the conversations that this starts to open up will bring a difference and bring some peace to a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Donal. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Donal.
Thank you very much indeed. That's Kathleen and Sharon there. Let's take a few more of your comments before we go to a break and then take a piece of music. What are they going to do about the price of fuel since October for hauliers? They were supposed to talk to the government, but we are still waiting. Also, a caller is asking about the €200 off your electricity bill and the extra fuel allowance. When is that coming in? Is it happening this month, and on what date? My understanding is yes, it is happening during this month. I'm not sure about the payment for the fuel allowance. My understanding is that the €200 off your electricity bill will automatically be taken directly from the bill. It isn't that you'll be given that money and then you apply it to your bill. I believe it's going to be taken off its source. Caller says, I feel like a moaning Minnie, but when is the AIB in Letterkenny ever going to sort out their banklink machine and getting working properly? For me, this is ongoing since last summer. Every time I go to use the machine outside, it's not working. 90% of the time, it's disgraceful to their customers. And certainly there is nothing worse than making a trip to a machine because you need money and then finding the dreaded service not available sign there because you've got to go and find a different machine or get your cash in another way. Now, I wonder, is part of this that so much more is now being done via contactless or credit card payment rather than the use of cash? And I found myself using so little cash over the past the past year and a half, 2 years basically. So maybe it's a byproduct of that. I actually can't think when I last used an external. Well, I can actually. I did it last week now that I think about it, but I do it so seldom these days. Caller said if the GP only got paid per visit, it would be a different situation. And there was an ongoing discussion about GP surgeries and how busy they are. Callers had just been to a service station in Donegal, ordered a breakfast roll and tea roll. It was $6.99 for the roll. The tea was €3. I'm on the road every day and use these shops, but I think that price is a rip-off. Just wondering if anyone else has come across these prices. Breakfast roll used to be $4.50. Then during COVID it went up to $5. I won't be going back again to that premises, and I would also warn other drivers about the rip-off prices. Just hope you can highlight this. Many thanks. And certainly there have been some price increases, and we know we've been speaking a lot about the cost of living and the fact that inflation is going up, and you can certainly see higher prices in your weekly shop, and you can see higher prices for the goods you're buying on a regular basis, and that's going to feed through to cafes and other services as well. Caller said they could have more staffing if wages were up. People fed up of working for peanuts and realising they're better off not working. The shortage of staff in hospitality is solely down to the rates of pay and the hours being unsociable. That is a reference to the conversation earlier on this week involving Noel and Niall about working in the hospitality sector. That conversation with Greg took place, if I recall rightly, on Tuesday. Caller says pubs, average price of a whiskey and water and a glass of lager is averaging $6.80 to $7.20. A lot of the time you're not getting the quality of drink that you would have if you bought it in and had it at home. It would seem you're not actually getting the brand you're paying for. Publicans should complain. I would have thought certainly if you're taking a whiskey, usually the bottles are up on an optic and it's quite clear what the bottle and the brand is. With the gentleman on talking about having to close his premises in Mount Charles, that happened yesterday, and having rooms he was unable to use due to regulations, it poses the question, what kind of regulations are we following when we're cramming buildings with people we need to take in from Ukraine? Will there be as much care and attention to these standards? So asks a caller. Get to those in a moment. Another caller says, just to warn others, I got a phone call from a firm saying my credit card was being used on eBay. I needed to take action to stop it, taking €1,349. They kept saying the digits of my card number and were issuing me a new card on Monday. They said they were calling from Dublin. They named a bank, but I'm not with that bank. I just want to warn people this is a scam, because once you give them numbers, you're caught. They had my correct name and address, which could lead you to believe it's real. And again, we always say it. If you get a call unsolicited from anyone who's looking to talk about bank cards, credit cards, looking for numbers, or the absolute giveaway, looking for passport words, under no circumstances should we engage with them. That is most definitely, I think we can say, a scam. It's just gone 10:30. We're going to take a short break. Back in a moment with some music.
Awalia is a free mortgage arrears support service providing financial, legal and insolvency.
Earlier today is World Book Day, and as part of World Book Day, Highland Radio's Around the Northwest with John Breslin will be coming from LYIT, from Letterkenny Institute of Technology, and that'll be on between 12 noon and 2:30 this afternoon, and a special Around the Northwest from LYIT to mark World Book Day. And even as we say LYIT, Letterkenny Institute of Technology, will not be saying that for very long, because on the 1st of April it becomes the Letterkenny campus of the Atlantic Technological University. But that's where John is going to be. Now, books in many ways can be an escape and allow us to enter into different worlds and escape the banalities and the issues of everyday life. Sadly, for some people in Europe, escaping everyday life is becoming increasingly difficult, and they find themselves living in a nightmarish situation. I am going to speak now to Yulia. You'll have heard Oksana, who is in Letterkenny, speaking to both myself and to Greg on a number of occasions over the past few days. Yulia is a friend of Oksana's, and Yulia is still in Ukraine. She is in Krymyjuk. Yulia, good morning, or good afternoon in your case.
Good afternoon.
Yulia, you are in Krymyjuk. Obviously, you are living in a state of concern for yourself and for wider friends of family. Give us a sense of what everyday life is for you in Ukraine at this point.
Okay, I will try to describe it as it's possible. People now are exhausted, scared, and terrified. I'm living in a small city. It's in the center. It's like 100 kilometers from Kiev. And here, luckily, it's like we are able to live. But my friends live in Kiev or in Kharkiv. It's like I can't imagine what they feel, because every day they hear the bombs. They hear like Russian soldiers. They just shoot civilians. They just bomb everything, like hospitals, apartment buildings, kindergartens, maternity hospital. It's like I don't know. When I start just reading the news, what is going there, it's like it's hard even not to cry. It's like our everyday life. We just start like we start calling like our family, friends, like to asking about situation. Like the first question, like, are you alive? Are you not wounded? What's going now? Is it quiet? Even it's quiet, we already are happy that people have time. Like, for example, this night, like in Kiev, I saw the news. I'm in different publics to read the news, what's going on. So I saw like, 10 or 15 messages that it's air raise the rent and people should go to the bomb shelters. It's impossible to live there. It's disaster. It's real war.
Yeah. And the services that we would have taken for granted, water, electricity, power, in many cases those services are now gone.
Yeah, some of them, it depends on the territory where you live, on the district, because some of the bombs, they damaged some pipes, and some of the people, they don't have electricity. I know a lot of people who just live in the underground in Kharkiv and in Kiev. It's like, unfortunately, it becomes like a common way for them, because they're just so afraid to go outside. So they just run quickly, maybe to the shop or to the pharmacy, and they go back, and they leave, actually. They even not there only when it's sirens. They just prefer even living there to save their lives.
As you say, you are in Krymyjuk, which is 110 kilometres from Kiev. Kiev obviously is the focus of the brunt of the Russian attack at the moment. Also, we know that Mariupol and Kherson already taken by the Russian forces to the south. Are you concerned that your town may come more on the radar as this advances and as this escalates?
Oh, can you repeat this question or paraphrase? Just
I do apologise.
To get the idea.
Yeah, are you concerned that your own town may be attacked?
Yes, I'm so afraid of it, because like 2 days ago we heard this like air raid ran. We went to the bomb shelters like 2 times. It was at the night, at midnight. Now, like tomorrow it was quiet, so I just hope and pray that it will stay calm. And unfortunately, not only in Kiev and Kherson, but also in other big cities, there are also like some like attacks, like in Kherson, in Sumy. And in Kherson, it's like still like war actions, but it's not grabbed yet. Like Russian soldiers are there, but our army is still defending the city, and they're still there. So it's just the fight. So it's not Russian city yet, and I hope that our army will protect the civilians there.
What message do you have for the Western governments and for the European Union in particular?
The message is just to stop the war, to help to stop it, because it's a terrible, it's nightmare. Just, I don't know, to stop these Russian soldiers in any way, to stop it, because it shouldn't be. It's 21st century. It's hard to believe that we live in this world. Just to help, please, our army, to help, I don't know, to stop the soldiers, to call, I don't know, to call their families, to tell them what is going on. They're, all dying, all soldiers, Ukrainian soldiers, Russian soldiers, everyone is dying. It shouldn't be like this. It's hard to believe that they are just going there to grab it. It's
Do you believe that the European Union should, as President Zelensky has asked, allow Ukraine to join immediately?
To do what?
To join the European Union, which is what President Zelensky asked this week.
I hope that it will happen, because it may help us. As quickly as we join the European Union, then it will mean that we will get more help, and then we hope that it will help the war stop. Because now we are afraid that that more people will die, because any help now is necessary from any country, and if the attacks will help, so we just hope that they will get Ukrainian to the European Union.
Do you have any confidence that the talks between Ukraine and Russia will reach some form of agreement, or do you believe it's at this stage almost impossible for peace at the moment?
It's a really hard question. I do want to have a peace in my country, but I just don't believe that Russian president will agree to it. I don't know. I believe in my Ukrainian army. I believe that because now people in Ukraine are so united. Everyone tried to help. Everyone tried to help refugees, to try the army with some food and with everything. But I'm just afraid that here in Ukraine, I think that people believe that Ukrainians, they will win and everything will be normal. But it just depends in what time. And that's why we are asking for help, because as soon as it will stop, it means that the less life we will lose and the less people will die. So about peace, I don't know. I hope that it will happen, because it will mean that people stop dying. But about today we have some
And Yulia, I know you do have family and friends in Kiev, as many people do, and you're concerned for them.
Yes, of course. I can stop crying for them, because I'm asking them, it's actually, they are telling me, don't panic, we are okay, but I'm, reading the news, I'm no, you're not. It's they are, they started, they try to live in these conditions, and, in these circumstances, and even, my, best friend, she is there, and she told me, okay, I didn't sleep at all, and now I'm just trying to have some breakfast, and it's again, this air, serene, and I have to choose, that I'm so exhausted. I even have energy, even I don't have energy to run. I just want to eat, and it's hard to describe the life now.
Yulia,
and I don't want even to leave the country, because it's my country. But I see how many people leave because they want to live and they want to be in safety places. It's
Yulia,
it's even hard to.
It's quite clear, Yulia, from your voice and from the emotion that's in it, the situation that you're in. We're thinking of you. We wish you well. We wish your family well. All I can do, Yulia, is do that. Is to wish you well and just say to people, have a listen to what you've just heard. That this is the reality of Ukraine. This isn't people ask, what this is the reality of what's happening. And what we've heard from you, Yulia, I think will give us all reason to think and think very hard today. And for that, we wish you well and we thank you.
Thank you for showing that what is going on here. Thank you that more people will know about it, and I hope that it will help our country. Thank you.
Yulia, as I say, we wish you well, and for what it's worth, our thoughts are with you. And that was Yulia there, who is in Krimijuk in Ukraine. She's about 110 kilometres from Kiev. And as she said, you know, she has family, she has friends in Kiev at the moment. And I think what we've heard is the reality of what's happening there. We'll take a short break.
With passengers boarding for the holiday of a lifetime, please go woo!
Highland Radio wants to send you on the holiday of a lifetime.
Worth €10,000.
Plus £5,000 spending money. Woo!
Get your ticket now at highlandradio.com. Answer the question and start packing. Start packing.
Draw takes place April 14th on the 9 Till Noon show.
Get your ticket early and enter a bonus draw for an extra week's holiday in Turkey.
Two for the price of one.
Start planning your ultimate getaway. Only on Highland Radio.
Nutrius Milk Replacer range, which includes NutriStart and NutriStart Plus, offers the best start to your calves this spring season. With 23% and 25% crude proteins, ideal for calf to beef and heifer rearing systems. Give your calves the best possible start. Available at your local Homeland store. Visit nutrius.ie for full nutritional information.
For confirmation and First Communion, see the great selection of suits, casual wear and footwear at Watson Menswear, Letterkenny. Top brands, including 1880 Club, Lyle & Scott, Farah and Diesel. Also Tommy Bow footwear, and all at great prices. Whatever the fit, whatever the style, confirmation and First Communions are covered. For less, at Watson Menswear. Open 7 days a week on Main Street, Letterkenny, and at watsonmenswear.com. Also, great end of sale bargains still available.
At Hickey, Clark and Langan Insurance Brokers, they compare quotes from all the leading insurers, so you get a great price. Home, motor and van, farm, holiday home, travel and liability insurance, they quote them all. So if the worst happens, you're covered. For a competitive insurance quote today, call Hickey, Clark and Langan on 9126688 or pop into their office at Ballymacool, Letterkenny. Hickey, Clark and Langan General Insurances Limited, trading as Hickey, Clark and Langan, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Text 086 60 25,000.
This is the 9 Till Noon show on Highland Radio. You can call us as well, of course, 074 91 25,000, 0035 374 91 25,000 if you're outside of the dialing area. And Caroline standing by to take your calls. Caroline producing this morning as well. One of the things that a lot of people don't realise is 10% of the world's wheat comes from Ukraine. And that's leaving Ireland particularly exposed because we have little or no milling in this country. Planting season is about to start, and we need to look at a way of getting about 50% of our own wheat internally. Joined on the line by Connell, who knows a lot more about these issues than I do. Connell, good morning.
Morning, John. Yeah, I'm very sorry for what's happening to the people of the Ukraine, but the picture is so big, even for the underdeveloped world like Africa, who have no wheat, and there's famine ravaging there, that the planting in the Ukraine will be greatly disturbed by this war that's going on. And I think we must look ourselves as an agriculture country, you know, of food security. Yeah. The fact that years ago we used to grow wheat, and I mean, boats used to sail up into Milford with wheat to make flour, for, you know, and that was the same up in Sligo and Ballysdare and in Buncrana. We do not have a flour milling industry in this country now because, you know, we went for using all our good land maybe for crops for animal feed and for dairying and that, but I think we need to revisit that and look in the interest of food security to see can we grow at least half of our wheat in the better parts in the land of the country, you know.
And the reality is that can't happen overnight. It's going to take a minimum of a year and probably longer before you can realistically get a full sort of industry going.
I think it was on your station before, but this last year, at the beginning of the planting season last year, you know, but seeing what has happened now, you know, I mean, there isn't an excuse for us probably, you know, because we have only a small population and we export 80% of our dairy and beef products. And, you know, food security, wheat, bread, people need to get it every day in this country, and because of what has happened, I think it's terrible. I mean, the Ukraine is the breadbasket of the world. It has the capacity to feed 600 million people, and there's only 42 or 3 million people itself. So you can imagine if the war goes on and there's no planting going on, how that's going to affect the very poor parts of the world that because of climate change and dryness and no rain, that they will. Where are they going to get any wheat to feed these people, and it's bad enough the way it is, but how much worse it's going to be in the future.
And we also understand from the Irish Farmers Journal this morning as well that, the agricultural sector here are going to be under some pressures because a lot of fertiliser, a lot of feed comes over from Russia, and that's now being compromised as a result of sanctions. So there could be supply issues in terms of those from about next month onwards.
Yeah, I think Russia has to get this, that this is not a Ukraine. This is going to spread out to be a huge world problem for many, many people out to the Ukraine. And the quicker, I can't see, the United Nations must bring these things forward to see how this war can be settled immediately, and to avoid the suffering, but also the long-term suffering, as we talk about the crops and everything, and the hardships that are going to cause to so many other people out to the Ukraine and all over the world.
Well, maybe, cynics might ask, is this part of Vladimir Putin's actual strategy? Because Putin knows that while Russia depends on the rest of the world in many areas, the rest of the world depends on Russia. And maybe that's one of the planks that he's building on, that it'll get to a point where, he'll use that as a bargaining chip down the line.
But it's hard to believe, with the strength of the United Nations, and they're so long established since the last World War, that their power is so limited that one person like that can force the rest of the world off a precipice, As I say, it's not a Ukrainian problem, it's a world problem for so many things, because we are all so interdependent on each other, and it's going to be hard enough for humanity to survive with all the reports of climate change and everything if we're not prepared to look at how we can work and cooperate with each other to even feed the world.
Yeah.
Instead of one person just dictating that this is the way that things have to go. And the United Nations has, it really, it's kind of been ineffective, all over the world because of the veto that like Russia.
And that is it, because Russia does have a veto in the UN Security Council, and indeed there was a UN Security Council motion some days ago, condemning the war in Ukraine. Of course, Russia vetoed it, so, there isn't a UN position on it, and the reason there isn't a UN position on it is because of that veto.
But it's totally outdated. If the rest of the world is thinking a different way, why should one country like that determine how the United Nations acts? And there's no way that NATO's going to go in there either to support the Ukrainians in the war, because that's going to cause more problems. But the United Nations is the vehicle of peace in the world. And the sad thing about it is the United Nations is and when wars is over, another arm of the United Nations like UNESCO, the World Food Organization, and they're trying to get food then to feed the people and build it up and build hospitals after all the destruction's done. So, it just makes no logical sense. A powerful organisation like the United Nations that's so incapable or so helpless in dealing with a problem like this.
Absolutely. And well, I suppose we say this every time there is some sort of a conflict or a thing like that, where, maybe lessons will be learned from this. And I know we said it at the time of the Balkan conflict that this can never happen again, and there must be protocols put in place that will stop this from happening again in Europe. And now we see what's happening in Ukraine, and it's different in many ways, but in other ways it's not different. And once again, we are seeing innocent civilians dying in Europe, and that's something, and we don't want to see innocent civilians dying anywhere. It's not just because it's in Europe we're paying more attention to it, but this is happening elsewhere in the world as well, be it Yemen, be it Palestine, be it Somalia, wherever. And absolutely, it's a point well made, Conal, and thanks very much indeed for speaking to us this morning.
Okay, Don, thank you.
Yeah, that's Conal, and that's a very important point Conal makes, that yes, indeed, we have a situation where, a lot of the world's wheat comes from Ukraine, and those supply chains are now being compromised, and from that point of view, it's a very important issue. Let's take a few of your comments before we go to a break, and indeed before we go to news. Caller says, when I hear this Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael Green government talk about taking in possibly 10,000 refugees, where will they be housed? Do they realise there is a homelessness housing crisis? And last but not least, the mica crisis. Who are they trying to fool? Arundel College are collecting goods for the Ukraine appeal up until 4 this afternoon. Parcels and packages are being accepted in the reception area. Another caller says, my daughter's shower has been leaking. Contacted the council office a few times, only to be told she has to fix it herself. Now she wants to buy the house. She's a lone parent of 2 children. The water comes through the kitchen ceiling if the shower is turned on. What can be done? So asks a caller. Caller says, would cyclists be willing to pay road tax for upkeep? They're a plague on the road and everyone else has to pay for their usage. I think that's a little harsh, to say the least. a call in from Paddy McMenamin, who is Seamus McMenamin's brother. The excuse that was given, and this goes back to the discussion yesterday about the collision on McGrory's Bray, in which Seamus was quite seriously injured, if I am correct in that. There is a sewage plant off of McGrory's Bray and a road leading up to it, and that's why there isn't a hard shoulder. It's a ridiculous situation, so says Paddy. Another caller says another problem developing is that people are throwing out glass bottles along the roadside, very dangerous for motorists and cyclists, can cause serious crashes. Plenty of bottle banks about the place, and I must say I have a bugbear about people throwing anything out the windows of cars. I think it's an absolutely horrendous thing to do. I mean, take a bag of some description, put your waste in the car in the bag, and then dispose of it when you get home. To throw things indiscriminately out a car window is just ridiculous. It really, really is. I want to play a request, actually, and say a very happy birthday to Michaela Allen and a happy 30th birthday to you, Michaela, and enjoy your day. We didn't play it at the time of the music because we went straight, obviously, to Ukraine at that point, but I just want to wish you a very, very happy birthday indeed, Michaela. And finally, before we go to a break, a caller says, with regards to World Book Day, it floated in the sky in exactly the same way that bricks don't. A quote from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the wonderful Douglas Adams, and caller says, that's my favourite book as well. It's kind of a trilogy in 6 parts. The other one of the wonderful things, and there's so much wonderful in The Hitchhiker's Guide, but I'll just share one with you where Douglas Adams says he discovers the secret of flying. And the secret of flying is quite simple. You throw yourself at the ground and miss. My friend, I raise a virtual pangalactic gargle blaster in your honour.
Hi, Dad.
Just popping on to say hi, love.
How did you manage to video call?
I'm a bit of a computer whiz these days.
I can see that.
And it's not just video calls. With High Digital's free online course, Paddy also learned to do the grocery shopping. And you can too.
So how are you, Dad?
Hang on, I've a very funny gift to send you. Or is it GIF?
Learn essential online skills today at highdigital.ie. Brought to you by Vodafone Ireland Foundation, Active Retirement Ireland and Alone. Vodafone, together we can.
It's exciting times at Hillside D-Max in Letterkenny because they've moved, but not too far. Their new kitchen design studio is now open at Curralees on the other side of the Mountaintop Roundabout. This new studio showcases the latest kitchen, wardrobe and slide robe designs, with D-Max renowned attention to detail and exceptional quality. Hillside D-Max, in the heart of your home since 1994. Now at Curralees, Mountaintop, Letterkenny.
Inflation-busting offers from Lidl help make your money go further. With products from across our incredible range, you could make your family a week's worth of delicious, nutritious meals and round it all off with a big Irish Sunday roast. That's a whole week's shop for a family of 4 for less than €76. Follow Lidl's Inflation-Busting Challenge online at #LidlInflationBusters for further savings tips and offers. And save even more money in store with the Lidl Plus app. Inflation Busters at Lidl. More for you. Products shopped February 15th. See Lidl.ie for details.
Donegal Hearing Clinic, now open at Pierce Road, Letterkenny and Buncrana. Now offering state-of-the-art rechargeable hearing aids free with your PRSI. Also pain-free microsuction wax removal services. Call 074 91 88470 or donegalhearingclinic.ie. Life sounds brilliant with Donegal Hearing Clinic.
This is the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. It's 11 o'clock. Time for our headlines. We say good morning, Michaela Clark.
Thanks, Donal. Good morning. The Housing Minister has welcomed the publication today of the SCSI's report on construction costs for the defective concrete blocks grant scheme. The report, which provides costing on 8 house types, will be published at 11:30. Minister Darragh O'Brien says the report will now be analysed by the expert working group. He says he intends to bring the final details of the micro redress scheme and require primary legislation to Cabinet in April. A woman remains in a serious condition in hospital after a crash in Rafo yesterday afternoon. At around 2:30 at Guesthouse End Street, a car collided with a second vehicle, which Gardaí say struck a pedestrian. The woman in her 50s was removed from the scene to Letterkenny University Hospital in a serious condition. The Justice Minister is pursuing plans to streamline short-term citizenship for Ukrainian people coming here. Helen McEntee is in Brussels this morning to discuss how the bloc will manage the high number of Ukrainian migrants entering the EU. A Donegal Labour councillor believes Alan Kelly never got the chance to demonstrate his leadership skills. Alan Kelly resigned as Labour leader last night after accepting that his parliamentary party no longer had confidence in him. Councillor Martin Farm believes the move to oust him was premature. Both the HSE and Donegal County Council are being urged to be proactive as it relates to buildings in Buncrana which are set to become vacant as a result of the new primary care centre. A number of buildings across the town are currently being used as clinics and surgeries but will be vacated when the centre opens in the coming months. It comes as the number of commercial property units lying empty across the country is at its highest level in 9 years. The commercial vacancy rate in Donegal increased to 16.9% in the last quarter of 2021, according to figures published today by GeoDirectory. And concern has been expressed over what's been described as a lack of regional balance in job creation statistics for Northern Ireland. The data shows that only 103 jobs have been created in West Rowan in the 15 months up to March 2021. Those are the latest headlines. We'll be back with an update again at 12 noon.
We all deserve a better work-life balance.
But not all of us have the space to work from home.
Connected Hubs brings together flexible workspaces across Ireland on one simple website.
So you can quickly and easily find a hub in your local area.
It's everything you want from an office without the lengthy commute.
Meaning you don't have to trade quality of life for quality of workspace.
Give yourself space. Visit connectedhubs.ie or download the app to discover a hub near you.
Connected Hubs is part of Our Rural Future, a Government of Ireland initiative.
This is the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio, the third and final hour of the programme. We're going to Zoom now, where I'm joined by a German student who has an interest in rural planning and has developed a very close interest in southwest Donegal. Anna Gielen, good morning.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure speaking to you, Anna. Anna, you're in Aachen in Germany. What made you interested in southwest Donegal and in particular Ardra, Lenties and Portneuf?
I really wanted to do my thesis abroad, and I've been to Ireland for a semester when I was 15 and I really loved it, so I wanted to go back to Ireland. And I looked at the statistics of where people are moving away from, and I found that in Donegal there are a couple of towns where people are leaving, and in the Lenties, Ardra and Portneuf area, it was a very specific age group of 19 to 25-year-olds, so I wanted to focus on that.
Roughly a little older in some cases perhaps, but roughly the same age as yourself, so obviously people you would regard as your peers.
Yes.
You started looking at the situation. You've begun work on the thesis, and one of the things you want to do as part of it is to get people to contact you if they're leaving and to tell you why.
Yes, that would be really helpful to me to see what the problem is in the area and what kind of concept I could create to improve that.
And how can people get in touch with you if they wish to do so?
Through my email address. It's Anna Gielen, both just spelled out, at me.com.
Anna Gielen at me.com.
Yes.
And Gielen spelled Gehlen.
Exactly.
Anna, in terms of your initial studies of Lenties, Ardra and Portneuf, you say it seemed that it had a particular issue in this regard. Are you saying there is something unique about southwest Donegal that isn't reflected elsewhere?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
In terms of, you said your initial studies, of Ardra, Lenties and Portneuf led you believe that there was a particular problem there. Is it just the numbers, or is it something that goes deeper than that?
It seems that there's a lack of opportunity for young people to get work and education, which seems to be a big factor in people leaving. But also there's already a lot happening in the area. People are very interested in creating a better future for the area, so that's what makes this area interesting to me.
Part of your brief is not just recognising those trends, it's also perhaps coming up with ideas and strategies to actually reverse those trends.
Exactly, yes. I study trend research and concept design, so for my thesis I will have to look at what is currently going on, but also how that could be bettered.
Do you believe that there are things that can be done to perhaps make it easier for people to stay, be it in relates to the provision of employment, the provision of education?
Yeah, there are definitely things that can be done. And I've looked into what other towns are doing in different countries in Europe as well. And there are lots of different approaches that different areas have. And it's very interesting we'll just have to see which one would fit to this area.
And if I were to ask you the question, and perhaps this is an unfair question, but what's the difference between, shall we say, rural Donegal and rural areas of Germany? Because it would appear, if I'm correct and I may be wrong in this, but it would appear there are particular issues in rural areas of Donegal that are not necessarily reflected to the same extent in countries like Germany.
Yeah, there are different issues in different rural parts of different countries, but I found it really interesting here because the people are very attached to their hometowns and really interested in getting invested in it and creating a future for it. So that's why I wanted to come here, because I need the people to be interested in it and also engaged in it themselves for it to work.
And one of the very interesting things is you developed your interest in this area of Donegal before ever coming to the county. So it isn't as though you'd been to Donegal, seen Ardráid, Lenties and Portneuf and decided that's the area you wanted to concentrate on. You began your studies and you developed your interest in the area before you ever actually saw it.
Yes. Yeah, I've never been to Donegal before coming here last month. So.
And do you envisage yourself spending quite a lot of time in Donegal now for the next year or two?
I'm planning on staying until the end of June at least. I might stay a bit longer, I'm not sure yet. And depending on what the concept is going to be and if it's going to be realized, who knows, I might stay longer.
And ultimately, we could have a situation where the outcome of your thesis and the work that you do could be the basis of some form of renewal programme in that area.
That would be awesome, yes.
Anna, it's been lovely speaking to you. So if people want to get in touch with you, it's annageelen@me.com and it's ANNAGEHLEN.
Yes, thank you.
Anna, thanks very much indeed for speaking to us this morning. It's been a pleasure and we wish you well and thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
And that's Anna who's been speaking to us there, based around the vicinity of Ardráid, Lenties and Portneuf there. And that's some very important and interesting work taking place. Now, we are going to say good morning to Anna. Let's take a few more of your comments before we move on. And a caller says, we got our ESB bill recently and the 200 was not taken off it. Does anyone know how and when the €200 will be taken off? Now, my understanding is that is due to happen shortly, but I'm not sure exactly when that's going to happen. Also, I have, as I said, the understanding is that it's going to happen in the next bill cycle. We will maybe make some inquiries and see what the situation is. Caller says, great to see Ukraine flags at football grounds and the encouragement of the same, but when Celtic displayed Palestine flags at Celtic Park, they were penalised. Figure that one out. And a caller says, how can An Post justify putting the price of a stamp up by 15 cent? Scandalous. And if that continues, it will put an end to Christmas cards, which will be sad. Now, I don't know about you, and maybe it was COVID, maybe it was the pandemic, but I think the past 2 years, the number of Christmas cards being sent has actually reduced quite substantially. That's my own unscientific and anecdotal observation, but certainly I think we have continued to send them out, but I think the number of Christmas cards we received over the past 2 years was down substantially, and I would not be surprised if that remained the case into 2022 and the Christmas yet to come. Today, as I said earlier, is World Book Day, but it's also World Hearing Day, and Brendan Lennon is the Head of Advocacy, Research and Public Affairs at Chime, and Brendan joins us this morning on Zoom. Brendan, good morning.
Good morning, Donald.
Brendan, the latest survey results which Chime has carried out very much highlights the stigma around hearing loss and the use of hearing aids. 59% of those surveyed said that people who develop hearing difficulties delay getting a hearing aid because there is a stigma associated with it.
Yes, Donald, we've known for quite a number of years now that a lot of people who acquire hearing loss in adulthood, and it is associated with aging, and it's actually the most common condition in older people, that quite a lot of them delay taking action. And we, and indeed even the World Health Organization, have highlighted this as a major concern for the individuals, but also for governments, because it's a very significant impact on population health. So we have been focusing in recent years on trying to make hearing aids more accessible for people in terms of affordability. And we had some success last year. Where there was a change to the grant that's available to people to purchase hearing aids, and it resulted in an additional 7,000 people getting hearing aids last year. So certainly cost was one of the problems, but stigma, you're right, is probably a bigger problem, and that's one we want to tackle now. We want to encourage people to take action. We want to tell people about the benefits of hearing aids. 80% of people say who get hearing aids say they improve their quality of life, they improve their social relationships, and indeed 80% of them say they'd wished they'd got them earlier. So on World Hearing Day today, we're really calling on people who think they might be, have a problem with their hearing to go and do something about it.
As you said, many people will say they wished they had looked at this earlier. And the survey indeed showed 79% of those surveyed. Now that's practically 4 out of 5 people said they waited until their hearing became quite bad before they considered getting a hearing aid. And, that's a worrying figure, because, if 4 out of 5 people who have hearing difficulties aren't looking into getting a hearing aid yet, that suggests there's potentially an awful lot of people out there who have issues that haven't yet come forward.
Well, exactly, Donald. And our finding in our survey, which involved 580 people aged 50 to 80, there just before last Christmas, and you were talking about Christmas cards there. That finding that 79% or almost 80% of people wait until their hearing becomes quite bad is exactly what the Irish Longitudinal Study on Aging found, which is based in Trinity, a large population-wide ongoing kind of program on the health of older people. And it found that of the cohort of people who reported hearing loss, significant hearing loss, only 1 in 5 had taken any action. In other words, 80% were doing nothing about it. And they also said, in the words of Tilda, were that people only go and get hearing aids as a last resort.
Is it because they're invisible? Because the interesting thing is, if you draw a comparison between hearing aids and glasses, if someone is wearing glasses because of their eyesight, it's visible, it's obvious, it's there. And that means it's absolutely normal. From the moment we become conscious of the world around us, we are conscious of glasses. And it's just the most normal thing in the world. Whereas you don't see hearing aids. Now, what people mightn't know is Bill Clinton, Steve Martin, Whoopi Goldberg, Jodie Foster, Chris Martin of Coldplay, will.i.am, all wear hearing aids. Now, if someone wears glasses, you know they wear glasses. If someone wears a hearing aid, you don't.
Yeah, well, I think, Donald, that in people's minds, hearing aids are they feel there's much more of a stigma attached to them. People wear glasses of all ages. It's much more common than people wearing hearing aids, for example. So that might be one thing. We find that people who are struggling with their hearing, this was borne out in our survey, that a fifth of them experienced social embarrassment and were nervous meeting new people because of their hearing loss. A quarter of them reported feeling frustrated and anxious about it. So that's one of the problems that, people feel about, like we're not going to feel anxious if we can't read the newspaper because we need to go and get our glasses. It doesn't make us feel anxious. But, struggling with our hearing does, because when we're missing out on conversation, maybe having to ask people to repeat things, we feel stupid. We may do anyway. And that's one of the things that people experience. And it creates that inertia, that reluctance to do something about it. We also know that people, some people have that memory of perhaps a relative of a previous generation using those old analog hearing aids that were, cumbersome, large, but we used to whistle and make all these noises, and people found them difficult to use and difficult to get benefit from, and that's certainly true. But modern hearing aids, as you said, they're much smaller, and they're much more less likely to be visible, and more importantly, they're much more sophisticated and give people much more benefit from the hearing aid. So in fact, 80% of people who get hearing aids say they greatly improve their quality of life. they improve their social relationships, and they wish they got them earlier. Another point I'd like to make to you, Donald, for what it's worth, is that sometimes in our minds, people also, the stigma is because in our minds, we think hearing loss is something that only affects older people. So in our survey, 43% of the respondents said that they'd experienced a deterioration in their hearing in the previous 5 years. So these were people aged 50 to 80. But in the 50-year-olds, 37% of them said they'd experienced a deterioration in the previous 5 years. So this is something that's not just, affects us in much older age. This is something that a lot of people in their 40s and 50s are actually experiencing.
And one of the ironies, in a sense, given that there is still a stigma and that there is still a reluctance perhaps to go and seek help, is I can certainly say, from our point of view here on a radio station, over the course of the past 6-7 years, the amount of advertising we've carried for audiologists, for local hearing companies, indeed for a high street chain that is more associated with sight, that now also has a hearing component to its work. I mean, the actual level of advertising of hearing services and audiology has been higher in the past 5 or 6 years, I'd say, here on Highland Radio than it's ever been in the past. And I suspect that is the situation across the country.
Yes, and I suppose it reflects two things. It reflects the fact that these companies know there's so many people out there who actually do need or should be doing something about their hearing loss. It also reflects that in some instances, there can be, quite large profits to be made from selling hearing aids. So, we would say to people, if they're going, to a private provider, if you've got a medical card, you can go to the HSE and you get free services there, including free hearing aids. So absolutely, that's what people with medical cards should be doing, albeit there are long waiting lists. But if you don't, you do have to go and purchase them privately. And you can pay anything from, €1,000 is the lowest that you'll pay at the moment for 2 hearing aids. And if you qualify for the PRSI grant, you'll get those free. But if not, you could be paying 3, 4, 5 and 6,000. So we would say to people, be very careful, shop around, make sure you're only getting what you need. And also to make sure that you have a chance to try them out first. Really important to make sure that you benefit from them.
But the first step really is getting that initial hearing test, and that's what people seem to be reluctant to have. So obviously the discussion over cost and so on is another discussion to have. The first step in the journey that may lead to that is going to be the initial walking into the premises to get the test, and that seems to be where the barrier is. That seems to be where people are not crossing that threshold.
Exactly, and that's where we want to encourage people to take that step. There's no pain involved in getting a hearing test. It's very simple. You simply wear a set of headphones and, listen to some beeps, and it only takes about a half an hour. So there's no pain involved there. Actually, most of these companies provide that service free. So you can, get it going. It doesn't cost anything to go and get that hearing test. We're encouraging people to go and take that step earlier, take action earlier, because the delay is won't make the hearing loss go away. It puts you at risk of other health conditions that
and indeed I have a comment just come in that says, never ignore hearing loss. I lost hearing in one ear 7 years ago. Today I'm awaiting treatment for acoustic neuroma. One should have equal hearing in both ears, and our caller says that's something everyone should recognise and be aware of.
Yes, absolutely. And, the everything from depression to dementia are actually much increased risks associated with unaddressed hearing loss. But the real thing that we would want to say to people is your quality of life. You feel left out. You're feeling embarrassed. You're withdrawing from your friends and family and your social life. These are the kind of things that people do in order to cope with the hearing loss that they're experiencing, rather than as I say, being proactive, taking action, getting the solution, and actually feeling that you're back again in the conversation with family and friends, living life to the full, that's what we want people to experience.
And just to go back to the issue of cost that we discussed a moment ago, because we've got a comment in, and I think this is a very, very important one, and I suspect that there's more than one person in this situation. Caller says, I had my hearing tested last year. It ended up that I need hearing aids, but they would have cost me over €4,000. I sure as hell can't afford that amount of money, so I didn't get them. I still need them. Now, I'm sure there are discussions to be had. Does that caller potentially qualify for PRSI support? Does that caller have a medical card? And, you know, as you said yourself as well, shop around. What sort of advice would you have for someone in that position who knows they need hearing aids, but they're balking at the potential cost?
Well, the first thing that I would say that people shouldn't do is they shouldn't pay more than they can afford. That's not a good idea. I don't want to get too technical about it, but, you know, hearing aids are sometimes a little bit like cars. You know, we have our Nissan Micras, and we have, you know, the Skodas and the Ford Focuses mid-range, and then we have the bells and whistles, the Mercedes or the Rolls Royce. So if, you know, the Nissan Micras, for most people who can who have that PRSI entitlement to the hearing aid grant, the Nissan Micras are free. They get you from A to B. They are beneficial, you know, and very good hearing aids. If you've a complicated lifestyle, if you're going to meetings and you're on committees and you have a busy work kind of schedule like that, if you want your hearing aids to Bluetooth to your phone so you don't have to click your phone and try and get it on, you know, all those kind of things. If that's the kind of lifestyle you need, well, then you probably do want technology that's a little bit more expensive. But I would say the most important thing of all is to go and get something. And, you know, those lower level 1 type hearing aids, we tend to call them, will benefit people. They're like as I say, a Nissan Micra. It mightn't be the best, you know, car to be driving from Letterkenny to Killybegs, but, you know, it will get you there. That's our message to people. Don't ignore the hearing loss. Don't get yourself socially isolated. The longer you leave it, you know, the more difficult it is to adjust to hearing aids when you do finally get them. That's another thing to consider. So the earlier people take action, the better.
And be it through yourselves in Chime or be it through another group or whatever, is there a place that people can go to get impartial advice? Because the problem is also going to be that you may go to a private provider and they may be trying to sell you the Mercedes or the BMW, and maybe there is another option that isn't been highlighted. Is there somewhere where someone can go for impartial advice where they will be told, well, you know, you can do A, B or C and just be given more options?
Yes, well, we would like to think that we give people impartial advice, Donald, even though we do have a small hearing aid service in some of our centres, not in our centre in Letterkenny, by the way. But we advise people to do, first of all, is, as I say, if you're a medical card holder, and a lot of people with you know, acquired hearing loss will be medical card holders, we say go to the HSE. And then we do say, look, by all means, shop around. Try and go with some, you know, who's a friend. Don't go alone. If you feel pressurized into buying, you know, if you feel you're getting a hard sell, walk out the door. That would be my advice, because it is true that, you know, some of these private providers that you talk about, you know, there's a commission basis in terms of how their staff are paid and so on. So, you know, it could be that you might experience a hard sell approach on occasion. And I would say to people, be very careful about that.
So Chime, as you said, does have a base in Letterkenny. How can people make contact and get in touch for that advice or for other help?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to say about our services that we support people of all ages. We have newborn babies diagnosed with hearing loss, a couple of months of age, wearing hearing aids, and we've even supported people into their late 90s and early 100s with things like listening devices, which are alternatives to hearing aids and can be very beneficial for those particularly older citizens. Our phone number in Letterkenny, 074 9188 252. We also have outreach clinics around the county in places like Carndonagh and Stranorlar. So get in touch with the local centre there if you want to book in on any issue, any query around deafness, hearing loss, tinnitus, equipment, that kind of thing. And if you don't have those details to hand, chime.ie, you'll get further details on how to contact us by text, etc.
Brendan Lennon, thanks indeed for speaking to us this morning. Important advice, and hopefully it will be of benefit to some of our callers and perhaps prompt some to go and get the help they need. Brendan Lennon, Head of Advocacy, Research and Public Affairs at Chime. Thank you very much indeed. And that's Brendan there. And that is Chime. As I said, 4 in 5 people who are in need of support are not getting it when it comes to hearing loss. And that is a concerning situation. A few comments before we go for a break. A caller says the whole of the Western media and journalists have all turned their backs on true journalism and real news. Every one of them, to their great shame, have all averted their faces and closed their eyes to the plight of Julian Assange because he dared to speak truth to power. And because of that, I and many more take everything the mainstream Western media tells us with a very large pinch of salt. Petrol and diesel keeps going up and up. Everything is going up and up. It seems to me that all shops and businesses are jumping on the bandwagon and just see this as an opportunity to increase prices. Where is this going to end? Asks a caller. And going back to yesterday when Micheál Cullen-Gillespie was on with Greg and referenced his views on the conflict in Ukraine and the Russian invasion there. Does Micheál Cullen think that being a neutral country is going to keep us safe? If that is the case, he is pretty naive. We'll take a break. Back in a moment.
With passengers boarding for the holiday of a lifetime, please go woo!
Highland Radio wants to send you on the holiday of a lifetime.
Worth €10,000.
Plus £5,000 spending money. Woo!
Get your ticket now at highlandradio.com. Answer the question and start packing. Start packing.
Draw takes place April 14th on the 9 till noon show.
Get your ticket early and enter a bonus draw for an extra week's holiday in Turkey.
2 for the price of 1.
Start planning your ultimate getaway. Only on Highland Radio.
Ooh. I used to play football here when I was a schoolgirl. Now I'm here coaching the next generation. Being a Garda means thinking quickly, being active and loving the excitement of not knowing what's around the corner. But it also means working as part of a team, guiding young people and helping keep people safe. You'll have plenty of skills that could help you be a Garda. You might not know what they are yet, but they're there. Apply to join as a Garda trainee by the 16th of March at publicjobs.ie. On Garda Síochána, the difference is you.
Visit Derry and experience a world of difference just over the border. See the historic walls, the waterfront and the famous chill-off licences at Da Vinci, White House, Culmore, Hatmore and Shantallow, which for some reason have suddenly become the #1 attraction. So visit Derry and leave with more than just memories. Please drink responsibly. See drinkaware.ie.
For indoor and outdoor fun, Tinny's Toys have something for everyone. From pedal and electric ride-ons to go-karts and scooters, there's loads of fun guaranteed. Also swings and slides, trampolines, goalposts and so much more. If you have a kid's birthday coming up, Tinny's Toys can help make it special. Visit Tinny's Toys on Leck Road, Letterkenny or shop online for express delivery at tinnystoys.com. Tinny's Toys, with so much more than just farm toys.
CarsIreland.ie presents When Car Buying Becomes Catfishing.
Oh, what's that smell?
I raise pigeons. I bring them in the back the odd time. They have a very particular scent.
It's horrible.
You'll get used to it.
Cars Ireland isn't just fast and easy. We only work with trusted dealerships, so you can find the right car without the unwanted surprises. CarsIreland.ie. Click, click, vroom, vroom.
Brian McCormick, Sports and Leisure, Main Street, Letterkenny. Try the new Brooks Adrenaline GTS 22 with the latest update on cushioning and stability. Brooks Ghost 14, offering a soft landing to ensure comfort. Ghost 14 Gore-Tex will also keep you dry. Every move you make is a step in the right direction with a pair of Brooks trainers. In-store or online. Click and collect on bmcsports.ie.
At your local Centra, we have great offers, like Centra Chicken Fillets 454 gram, only €5. Lynx Body Spray 250ml selected range, half price now €3.49 each. And McGuigan Black Label range, only €9 each. Centra, live every day. Enjoy alcohol sensibly.
On the night of April 3rd, we'll all come together to fill out our census forms. And the information you provide will help show where essential services are needed in every part of the country. So on Sunday, April 3rd, be a part of Ireland's future. Be counted. Visit census.ie to find out more.
June 2022, August 2022, January 2023. Is that what you're hearing when inquiring about the delivery of a new vehicle? Guess what? That's not the case at iMotors. Call in today and choose your new car with immediate delivery available across our full range of Nissan and Kia models. Drive away in your new 2022 car. Call iMotors in Letterkenny and Malin on 07491 34567.
Caller asks, why has Ireland and Europe cut the Russia Today TV channels from broadcasting both on the TV and social media? What are they afraid of? If they won't allow their citizens hear other points of view, then they're no better than the old Soviet USSR. We were speaking before the break about hearing, and I'm joined on the line by Hugh. And Hugh, good morning.
Good morning, Donald.
Hugh, you've been wearing a hearing aid for quite some time now, and it has helped you say.
Yeah, they help me to a certain extent. I wear 2 hearing aids, but there's one that I can't wear all the time because I have a medical complaint that it's called tinnitus of the hearing, you know, and the tinnitus is very, very loud, you know, and if I wear the 2 hearing aids, I have to take out one because the one on the tinnitus side, it makes the tinnitus louder, and it would drive you off your head.
Yeah, and is the tinnitus is the tinnitus with you all the time, or does it sort of come and go in terms of its intensity?
Yeah, it's 24/7, 365 days of the week, and there's actually nothing can help me. I was sent to a hearing aid clinic there about 6 months ago, and they fitted me with a different hearing aid, you know, for the tinnitus. But I wore it for 2 days, and I had to take it out because it was no good to the tinnitus. But I'm saying that on the other side, if I hadn't got the tinnitus, I would recommend everybody else of a hearing loss to go and get a hearing aid, because if I hadn't got the tinnitus, I would be up to another hearing aid for me left ear, you know. But unfortunately, in my experience, there's no cure for tinnitus, none whatsoever. But there is a cure for a certain loss of hearing. You know, there definitely is, but that's my opinion anyway, you know.
And in your case, you have found, even if you're watching the TV or in a conversation, you know, to have that hearing aid in, it's the difference between being able to follow what's happening and not.
Yeah, I could talk to you or anybody all day, one-to-one, but if I went into, say, a place 4 or 5 in it, and they were all talking, not talking to me, but if I had a conversation with somebody, you know, those people would wreck my conversation. I would not know what they're talking about, you know. I wouldn't even know the lady that's talking to me or the man that's talking to me. Like, only yesterday, I had such a handling I had yesterday. I went to get my driving license, and like, there are 2 cubicles, and there's a lot of questions has to be answered and all. And like, the lady was talking to one man, and I was talking to another lady. Oh, I didn't hear half the stuff that she was saying. I was apologizing more times than enough, you know.
So if there's other conversations going on around you, the hearing aid just sort of treats everything equally, and you find it hard to distinguish between them.
Oh, that's correct. You know, it's senseless. Like, it leaves me like, if I was invited to a party or invited to a wedding or someone social, I would try and make an excuse not to go, because I can't hear in a crowd. I'm yesing and knowing, and maybe I should be saying no, and I'm saying yes. You know, I'm trying to bluff my way through it. You know.
And in terms of, can you say go to the theatre? Could you go to a musical or a play in the theatre now, for instance?
Yeah, if it was quiet, you know, if they're only, say, a theatre like and me up close enough to it, I could, as long as there's nobody else, the music be okay or people talking be okay, as long as there's nobody there beside me talking or anything, I could hear them to a certain extent, but like as I say, I sit and watch the TV 24/7 and I have no problem. I use the hearing aid, I would have the hearing aid, if I took the hearing aid out, there's 100 digits, there are 100 digits on the remote control. I would have it up to about 95, to hear what they're saying. But once I put up on the hearing aid, it would be around 30, 35, It's a big help.
Well, it's good to hear, Hugh. We wish you well, and listen, thanks indeed for sharing your experience with us. Because I mean, what Chime and what Brendan is saying to people is, look, go and get advice, and it may well be that a hearing aid is going to change your life. And sorry, obviously, to hear you have tinnitus, but it's clear that without the hearing aids, you'd be in a worse place. So thanks indeed for sharing the story with us.
Not a problem, Donald. What I would advise anybody with hearing difficulty to go and see about it.
Hugh, fair play to you for speaking to us, and thanks indeed.
Thank you, Donald.
Thank you, Hugh. That's Hugh, and that's Hugh's experience there with hearing aids. And just to repeat what Brendan said, if you're having difficulty with your hearing, please do go in and check it out and start the conversation. It may be a while down the road before you're talking about hearing aids or you're getting hearing aids in, but the first step across that threshold is to actually get the hearing test. Now, we're going to go to Zoom and we're going to discuss a story which I have to be honest and say I was sick to my stomach reading parts of this, because it's a book called Sins of the Father. The author is Shanita Daly, and I hope I've pronounced that correctly, because we haven't really had a chance to talk too much off air. This is a story of sexual abuse of the most awful kind. Shanita, good morning.
Hi.
Can I just confirm that I have the pronunciation right, so that I can do it?
Yeah,
indeed. Yeah. Shanita, you were abused on a regular basis by your father, and it's an abuse which started when you were very young.
I think I was so young that I don't remember a time before that there wasn't. It just seems to have been my whole childhood until I was an adult.
And as a result, you almost, and it sounds horrible to say this, but this almost seemed to you then, I presume, to be the norm.
Yeah, I think until you're like in your teenage years and you're socializing with other teenagers and seeing their families, that it's kind of then that you realize it's not the normal thing that happens in every house. And in terms of the abuse, it was sexual, and there was other abuse in the house as well, in terms of physical abuse. Yeah, when you get to go to court, it's just for the charges of the sexual abuse and rape and stuff, and the physical and emotional abuse is often worse. You don't get to have your day in court to do with all that stuff, and that can be just as damaging as the sexual abuse. And at one stage, you say your mother and your father was Harry, your mother was Rose, and Rose was besotted with your father, even though at one time he'd beaten her so badly he actually thought he'd killed her. Yeah, that's the only physical abuse I know that happened between my parents, and my father had told me about that the night my youngest sister was born, when I was 14. And I'd never known about it or anything. I never seen or heard it happening since, but no, she was totally 100% besotted with him. As you say, the abuse continued from about the age of 4. It continued for 10 years, and then at the age of 14, something horrific happened. It continued till I was 17. I moved out of home, and then I realised I was pregnant. And all that we knew at the time was, mums being pregnant. There was no teenage pregnancies that we knew of or anything like that. So we were very naive, and I just happened to be in the wrong place at the right time to get a termination at 17.
And you had a termination at that point. You, at that stage, kept quiet. From 18 to 26, you said nothing. You were living with the psychological impact of this, and I know at times you were drinking quite heavily in a bid to cope with what must have been, horrific thoughts and conflicts going on in your head. And then when you were 26 and had a family of your own, he tried to start it again.
Yeah, I kind of realised there was something going on and that the grooming process, I now know that the grooming process had started. I just didn't realise what it was. I just had a feeling that something was going to be said between us, because it was never spoken about what had happened. And he was grooming me totally to just slot back into my life. And when he did attack me that night, my 3 children and my partner were downstairs in my parents' family home.
He obviously felt then that he just had a right to do this, that you were in some way, I mean, to put it bluntly, you were his sexual property to do with what he willed.
Yeah, it was like I was his, and it took such a long time with the grooming process that you feel that you're connected to that person that has hurt you. It's kind of like the Stockholm syndrome, that you empathize with your captor, and it's a very bizarre thing to live through and go through. But yeah, it took me quite a while to get rid of the feeling that we were joined together in some way.
It was after that, when you were 26 and you were assaulted again, it was at that point that you considered reporting this, and you went to Gardaí, presumably with help and support, and ultimately it ended up in a court.
It was actually 10 years later when I pressed charges against him. After that, my mum stayed with him again, and I realised that I was not his only potential victim, and I considered the only way of stopping him was to put him in prison.
I know you said earlier that you did have a younger sibling. I mean, that must have increased your concern when you realised what had happened to you. I mean, was that a factor in your thoughts?
Yeah, well, my youngest sibling she was having her first baby, and it was going to be a girl. She wasn't living at home, but then she was going to be moving back in, and she didn't know anything about what had happened, so I had to tell her. So there was little cracks appearing along the way before I did go and press charges. So that had to be the end of his journey anyway.
Had you spoken to your mother about this? Was she aware of what was happening, or was she living in blissful ignorance?
No, I told my mother when I was 17. My dad moved out of home for a year to get professional help. He came back after a year. She told me that he was cured. And then I told her again when I was 26, and she stayed with him. And then when I pressed charges when I was in my 30s, he moved out of the house again. And then the night he went in on remand, she told me that she was sick of this bullcrap. And she's still with him.
Even though he was sentenced to prison, and in 2011 he was finally sentenced to 15 years with a 5-year suspension.
Yeah, and he admitted to everything. And she stayed with him.
You now run survivors side by side, and you coordinate support groups nationwide. I mean, it must be difficult for you, or is it, to hear stories from other people that will mirror and reflect what you went through?
No, it does not cause me a night's sleep, or it doesn't upset me. It's kind of like therapy for me to talk to other people, and I totally understand what they're saying. They understand what I'm saying. We're not being judged. We're not being,
Yeah.
It's just nice to talk to other people, and I don't think I would do it if I didn't find it therapeutic, but I love reaching out to people, knowing that they're not on their own.
Yeah. Well, the book is Sins of the Father, Sinead Daly, with Linda Watson-Brown. It's a horrific story, but also a story ultimately that tells, of how you took back your own life, and from that point of view, it's a very important book as well. Sinead, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us this morning.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye now. Take care. That's Sinead there, and a horrific, how I can't even contemplate the horror of what's happened there. We're going to take a short break. Back after these.
As you start rediscovering Northern Ireland again, we want you to explore with confidence. That's why we've introduced the We're Good to Go industry standard for tourism and hospitality businesses. So you know they've agreed to follow COVID-19 safety guidelines, like social distancing, following the recommended cleaning processes and undergoing spot checks, so you can enjoy your break to the full. Look out for the safety symbol for businesses that are good to go. Northern Ireland, we're good to go. Brought to you by Tourism Northern Ireland in partnership with UK national tourism bodies.
Hello, Grace. Where are you heading?
Down to Made to Measure Fireplaces in Creasla.
Made to Measure Fireplaces? Didn't you just buy a fireplace there?
Yeah, but I'm going now to pick my kitchen worktop.
Create the kitchen and living room of your dreams at Made to Measure Fireplaces and Granite Worktops. They've been in business for over 40 years, so for help choosing granite or quartz for your worktop, fireplace or stove, visit the Made to Measure showroom at Cashel Creasla or see mtmfireplaces.com or on Facebook.
Years ago, I used to dread my motor insurance renewal. Then a friend told me about O'Malley Scanlon Insurance in Ballybofey and Dunlow. They do all the hard work. They contact all the major insurance underwriters and they get the very best possible quote for me. They have saved me a small fortune over the years, and they could do the same for you.
When your insurance comes up for renewal, contact O'Malley Scanlon Insurance at their Ballybofey office on 9131020 or their Dunlow office on 952206. O'Malley Scanlon is regulated by the Central Bank.
Lingering sunsets in Spain, captivating coastlines in Croatia, dinner overlooking Lake Como. It's time to stop dreaming and start doing. Let us guide you to your dream destination. Just show up, suitcase in hand, and we'll take care of everything. Flights, accommodation, excursions, expert local guides, and all that planning. Secure your spot now on a guided group tour with deposits from €100. See traveldepartment.com. Irish owned and operated for over 25 years. Travel Department. Let's see more.
This is the 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio, and delighted to say that we are joined on Zoom this morning by Michael Doherty, who's PRO of the Micah Action Group, and Councillor Martin McDermott, who chairs Donegal County Council's Micah Redress Committee, because we know that the SCSI has published its much anticipated construction costs for the defective concrete blocks grant scheme report. Based on 2022 material and labour rates, they've set out an average rebuild cost of €157 to €165 per square foot for an estate type house and €145 to €167 for one-off houses. Michael Doherty and Councillor Martin McDermott, you're both very welcome this morning. And Michael, I'll go first to you. You're getting a chance to look at these figures. Are these more realistic than what was being talked about in November?
Oh, there's without a doubt they're more realistic, Donald. Yeah. I have to say SCSI have done a good job here. Within the confines, remember, of the terms of reference they were given, they weren't given carte blanche to go do 2022 regs as 2007 regs. So that's what they were mandated to do. They didn't have an option on that. There are also mandated to go with basic finishes as opposed to what some of the homes might have had themselves. They were told the 8 house sizes and types that they had to work off as reference points. So all of that was, their hands were tied. But based on the process that they went through, which is much better informed process than what was done previously. This wasn't a department doing a desktop exercise in Dublin. This was the QSs on the ground, working in the areas, feeding to the SCSI, and on the back of that, they came with the rates that we have today. So definitely a big step forward, and I think there's a lot to be pleased about here today for our homeowners. I think this gives a real chance now of doing something that should have been there all along, but we'll certainly take it now. I think the other point, Donald, that's important is this is not over the line. This is the proposal from the SCSI. That's not in legislation in any shape or form. So it's up to the minister now to stand by what he said he would do, which was to respect the independence of SCSI and carry forward what it is they have proposed here. These rates are not rates that you're going to be doing cartwheels on and saying, wow, this is way, way over and above what we need. Far from it. This is fair rates, which is all we've ever asked for. But, this could cause issues for the minister within the DPAR, within finance, between Minister McGrath and Donoghue, where this may, I'm sure this is not the rates they were looking to see.
Well, if I recall correctly, they were talking about
if I
recall correctly, they were talking about mid 130s in November. So to go from that up to between 150 to 167, I mean, that is far more realistic. Councillor Mark McDermott, I want to go to you because you chair, as we said, Donegal County Council's Redress Committee. Now, you've been, in a sense, almost in the council on the sidelines, waiting to be given details of a scheme that the council can then implement and actually activate on the ground. And that's what you want to do, I'm sure, more than anything else. Are these figures you believe you and the council can work with?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I think that the figures, as Michael has stated, there is much more realistic now than they have been, especially what was put out there at the end of November. It gives people hope today. It gives people, something to look forward to today, and it really gives people a chance to rebuild their houses, and that has to be the main outcome that we all have to get to here. But as I say, there's lots